Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 421, The Upper World. At that point in time when the light enveloped Zen's body, he heard some footsteps inching closer from behind him. As it turned out, it was actually the young master of the Shui clan, whose cultivation was at the later stage of the internal elixir realm. He had managed to breeze through and reach the 6th floor. Beneath that blinding light, Zen felt as though his entire body had been set ablaze and burnt down into cinders. From what he could make out of it, his body was being reduced to ashes and his physical form was fading away slowly into nothingness. This plan of the young master of the Shui clan had already been set in motion so long ago. He went through lengths just to reach Zen in time. He took great efforts to chase Zen behind him. But at the very end, he had been just a couple of seconds too late, and the last thing he saw when he got there was Zen's smiling face fading into the light. A few moments before Zen had entirely vanished, the Cyan Dragon was able to transfer a fragment of his soul directly to him and alter the divine texture to just the bare minimum without getting caught. The second Zen disappeared completely, a white light materialized right above the Dragon Soar arena, beaming upward into the sky. It passed through a chunk of clouds, strong wind, and dense space cracks, vanishing at the edge of the sky. That was amazing. The young master of the Shui clan really managed to pull it off. It seems he has already been transferred somewhere else. Letting out a sigh of relief, the Lady Poison Blood's eyes were glistening in amusement. As she stared up at the Dragon Soar arena, she wore an enthusiastic look on her face. It had been long rumored that the Dragon Soar arena was actually the channeling passageway of the vast world built by the genuine dragon. A person who had access to it could be transferred straight into the upper world. This just went to verify that the legend was indeed true. The passageway really existed. The inhabitants of the world Zen had been in had no means of flying into the upper world, not even if they somehow managed to pass through the 9 thunder turns. All throughout the past millennia, no one had ever flown into the upper world. Not a single person, living or dead, could understand the logic behind it. There were various explanations how the Dragon Soar arena had been revered that much by the grade 4 or 5 sects. One of those reasons was that it could be of great help for their disciples to improve their cultivation skill. The lucky light of the genuine dragon had an even greater effect compared to that of the other pills out in the market for strengthening their cultivation ability. And the lucky light had no side effect whatsoever. One other reason was that the Dragon Soar arena was, in reality, a ticket to the upper world. Humans had a chance to step foot in the upper world by passing through the road located in the genuine dragon world. A lot of the strongest warriors standing at the apex couldn't find a way to break through and reach even higher up even though they had been lucky enough to persevere at the 9 thunder turns. With a lifetime spanning a couple millennia, they eventually reached the end of their lives and withered away becoming figures only existing in the history books. Lifespan was a limitation which mere human beings could never hope to overcome in this world. If they could get to the upper world, only then would they be capable of existing at a higher form. It gave the warriors living on this side of the world something to strive for, an end goal. Literally seconds ago, Lady Poison Blood discovered that the young master of the Shui clan had stepped foot in the Dragon Soar arena. Now, after gazing upon the white light rising toward the sky, she was under the assumption that it must be the work of the young master of the Shui clan. Little did she know that the young master of the Shui clan had actually been left behind, standing on the 6th tier, fuming with intense rage. This is so confusing. What is happening here? The young master of the Shui clan yelled quite furiously. He had already lodged the dragon-shaped jade pendant into the slot beside the divine texture just as he was supposed to. However, for some reason, the divine texture still hadn't been activated. I'm quite certain that the guy has been transmitted away a little while ago. Just how in the world was he able to make it work without having a dragon-shaped jade pendant in his possession? Why isn't it working? What am I doing wrong? Why can't I do it? The young master of the Shui clan thought, beginning to get frustrated. There was a grim look that crept onto his face. One thing he wasn't aware of was that moments before Zen had left, the cyan dragon managed to stealthily alter the divine texture a little bit. After a couple of attempts and pondering about it for quite some time, the young master of the Shui clan took off the dragon-shaped jade pendant. In that instant, upon taking off the jade pendant, the round divine texture started lighting up once again. "I made it work," the young master of the Shui clan screamed his lungs out, feeling so exhilarated. Hurriedly pacing toward the light, it didn't take too long until his body began to fade and he ended up vanishing into thin air. Letitia, along with everyone else, noticed the light beaming from the top of the Dragon Soar arena again, and they all shot a baffled look at it. A while ago, a person has just been transmitted away. So, why is it lighting up again out of nowhere? Everybody was wondering deep inside. Out of the people who happened to witness the second beam of light coming from the arena, it was solely the three warriors in the internal elixir realm that were delighted to see it once again. "Our young master has successfully been transmitted as well," the warriors thought to themselves. The three knew fully well that the first light could only mean that the strange guy who went into the Dragon Soar arena first had been successfully transmitted and not their young master. They were quite concerned about their young master upon seeing the first beam of light. But right now, their minds were finally put at ease. Given that they failed to secure the Dragon Soar arena, they were still fortunate enough to send their young master to obtain some experience in the upper world. Supposing that their young master somehow managed to break into the virtual tribulation realm, they would have a chance to bring the Shui clan from grade 3 all the way to grade 4. Then, from out of the blue, something they weren't anticipating took place. Everyone saw the light gleaming once more and a figure materialized from that light, one who appeared to be in a precarious state. Tossing and turning in the air for some time before he came to a halt, he eventually stood up on the ground. Examining his surroundings, he asked, "Where have I been transmitted to?" "Why, young master," one of the warriors at the internal elixir realm from the Shui clan called out to him. It was then that the young master of the Shui clan instantly came to wrap his mind around what had just happened. If they were standing there next to him, it must have been a failure of a transmission. After going through such lengths, he ended up being made a fool out by that young man. Unable to hold himself back and control his temper, the young master of the Shui clan yelled out, seething with anger, "I failed to get transmitted straight into the upper world. What happened? Where did I go wrong?" "Young master, there's a crowd of people watching," the warrior at the internal elixir realm whispered under his breath to remind the young master. Upon realizing what the warrior meant and coming to his senses, the young master lifted his head up. In an instant, his face turned pale. There was a group of warriors at the virtual tribulation realm hovering in the sky just right above him. Raven peered down at them and questioned the young master of the Shui clan, "Little man, who was it that got transmitted earlier?" The young master of the Shui clan might have been revered as a high-level warrior through the eyes of the nature creatures and warriors at the illuminating soul realm, but in front of the best and strongest warriors of the central region, he looked like a lamb who was at their mercy. With that in mind, he had no choice but to answer Raven's question truthfully. "The person who has been transmitted away was a man at the nature level. I have no idea who that person was, but he was so swift that I got left behind." Right after he was done answering Raven's question, the young master had a look of resentment written all over his face. He was having a hard time comprehending what Zen had done to get transmitted while he himself failed to do so. "A nature creature," Letitia tried to confirm, seeming to be utterly bewildered. "This nature creature must have been a brave one. Even warriors like us at the virtual tribulation realm have to take some time to get ourselves ready if we could be transmitted away. It is rather surprising that a nature creature was able to pull it off today," she thought, her eyebrows knitted out of annoyance. Without any clue whatsoever of Zen's whereabouts, of course, she never would have thought it was him who had actually been transmitted. All things considered, there was just a tremendous amount of living warriors in the whole world. It could even probably amount to billions of warriors in this world, and the actual number of nature creatures was innumerable. So, it would be quite difficult for Tia to guess the possibility of Zen turning out to be that nature creature. Even though they all could sense something unusual, no one actually bothered to dwell on it too much. The top priority of the sect leaders at the moment was to acquire ownership of the Dragon Soar arena. Lady Poison Blood then declared to the warriors waiting in the area, "We should settle down and discuss this peculiar occurrence. But first and foremost, shall we go ahead and come up with a decision on how we're going to deal with the winged dragon?" The winged dragon let out a mighty roar. The winged dragon was not merely a pure animal. It actually had a mind of its own. As the designated guardian beast of the Dragon Soar arena, he sensed an ominous threat. Lying in front of this great number of strong opponents, it was difficult to survive, not to mention to guard the dragon soar arena. Zen could feel that he was floating in the void. Every single fiber of his being had been torn into shreds and was moving at breakneck speed. Soaring at such an unfamiliar state, Zen even lost his sense of time and had no dang clue where he was. After quite some time, Zen had the sensation of his body beginning to materialize, albeit slowly, much like a jigsaw puzzle. Eventually, his body abruptly trembled drastically, and finally, he had arrived at his destination. Where am I? Where have I been transported to? What is this place? Zen had a lot of questions in his mind. Scanning the area, it was hard to miss the Cyan city right in front of him. And as he looked back from where he came, he saw rows of transmission arrays. Lifting his head up and shifting his gaze upward, the transmission arrays stretched as far as his eyes could possibly see. From what he could wildly guess, it looked as though there were approximately more than 100,000 transmission arrays. Such a huge quantity of transmission arrays. Zen found it hard to fathom that he could not help himself from thinking out loud. The sheer amount of transmission arrays truly astonished Zen. From where Zen had been residing, constructing a single transmission array would cost a great many supreme crystals. But from where he stood, he laid his eyes on 100,000 transmission arrays. How fascinating that scene was. The Cyan dragon, however, did not even bat an eye. He told Zen, a single transmission array is connected to a dragon soar arena. You might assume that the 100,000 transmission arrays are quite a lot to take in, but the fact of the matter is that they are simply parts of our genuine dragon's world. By now, you should understand that this city was constructed for dragon lineage humans like you. It is merely a fragment of your whole existence. The genuine dragon constituted not just the actual dragons, but the dragon lineage humans as well. The anatomy of these so-called dragon lineage humans held genuine dragon blood inside them, and they also had the ability to learn the most powerful cultivation methods put into practice by the mighty dragons. In truth, there were even a handful of warriors who were much more powerful than the genuine dragon. All in all, there was actually a vast number of dragon lineage humans residing in the lower world. That was the main reason why the genuine dragon decided to build lots of dragon soar arenas, acting as the passageway for the dragon lineage humans in the lower world to gain access to the upper world. So, the best fighters of the central region were extremely eager to fly straight to the upper world through the dragon soar arena. When all was said and done, it was the quickest path that the genuine dragon designed for use of the dragon lineage humans. Surveying everything around him for a second, Zen walked toward the Cyan city. At this point, a handful of guards riding on some strange creatures appeared and walked over to Zen and surrounded him. The weird creatures seemed to be half human and half avian. Chapter 422, Imprisoned. Cold, calculating eyes scrutinized the burly squadron of guards. However, Zen couldn't gauge how skilled they were. After Zen was rounded up, the head of the guards, who sat behind the half-man, half-bird monster, measured him up and ordered his men, "This guy is not a member of our clan, but he used the dragon soar arena without our permission. Lock him up for 1,000 years before releasing him." After he finished speaking, a small green ball appeared in each of the guards' hands. The balls shot out lines of green threads at Zen, and soon enough, he was bound tightly. The team of guards then dragged him away to the Cyan city. Zen had no chance to explain himself during the whole ordeal. Imprison me for 1,000 years. Are you kidding? Zen thought and smiled bitterly. Cyan dragon, it seems the members of your genuine dragon family are not friendly. He complained. Ha, that's because you don't have the essence and blood of our genuine dragon family. Since you're not a member of our family in the lower world, then you would be punished for using the dragon soar arena without our permission. Don't worry, you'll be released after 1,000 years, the Cyan dragon said with a laugh. He thought that this wasn't a big deal. I made this rule many years ago, he added. The genuine dragon family was huge. In addition to genuine dragons, it also included different races that had blood relationships with it, such as the dragon lineage human race. It was one of the powerful races in the genuine dragon family. Many of these races lived in the lower world, so the genuine dragon family had built many dragon soar arenas for the lower world. These dragon soar arenas were used to carry only the genuine dragon family members to the upper world. If anyone of other races tried to use it, they would be imprisoned for 1,000 years as punishment. The young master of the Shui clan who had reached the internal elixir realm tried to use the dragon soar arena. However, he failed because the Cyan dragon had changed the divine texture on the dragon soar arena. The funny thing was that because he didn't succeed, he narrowly escaped being imprisoned. Otherwise, he would die in the prison, since even an internal elixir realm practitioner only lived until 800 years at most. Zen didn't know what to respond to what the Cyan Dragon said. He wasn't 20 years old yet. He could only live until 300 years at most with his current cultivation base. He wouldn't even live to see 1,000 years to be released. Take it easy, I'm a member of the genuine dragon family. Although I can't show up in public for some reason, I won't let them do anything harmful to you, the Cyan Dragon said lightly. Zen felt a little relieved to hear that. After a while, they soon reached their destination. The city was so big that it had walls as high as a mountain. Some huge textures that spanned several miles were etched on the city wall. They interlaced with each other and made a complex pattern. Zen looked at the textures on the wall with awe. He wanted to look at them for a bit longer, but he was being dragged by the guards. They're divine textures. Wow, they're so huge, Zen exclaimed. Did you draw them? He asked. The Cyan Dragon explained with a laugh. Ha! This city belongs to the dragon lineage human race, who are a collateral descendant of our family. It is used exclusively for greeting the family members from the lower world. Why would I have drawn this for them? I won't even draw textures for the main cities of the dragon lineage human race. He added. In terms of skills, the Cyan Dragon might not be the best in the genuine dragon family. However, he had every reason to be proud when it came to the divine textures. After all, he had drawn the Grand Marvelous Array, which was the core protection array of the genuine dragon family. In the genuine dragon world, there were many cities of such kind. The Cyan Dragon obviously wouldn't draw divine textures for them. After a few minutes, the guards dragged Zen through the city gates. Zen carefully sized up each person he could along the way. However, he couldn't figure out their cultivation base, except for a few of them who were illuminating soul realm masters, and some were even internal elixir realm masters. It was clear that the members of the dragon lineage human race knew some mysterious method that hid their real cultivation base. Zen thought that they must have extremely high cultivation levels. After a while of traveling, Zen was taken to a gray building with drab iron fences around it. Zen knew they were in the prison now. Shortly after, Zen was stuffed behind the iron bars near the prison's entrance. Then, the iron door was closed with a bang. Some prisoners, who were either lying down or sitting on the ground, were scattered in the cell. Some of them meditated in a cross-legged position. Zen glanced at them and realized that some of them were illuminating soul realm practitioners, internal elixir realm practitioners, and even a few virtual tribulation realm masters. They weren't from the central region. Zen guessed that they might have come from different areas of the lower world. They must have been considered powerful in where they came from. They must be the stowaways who, like me, tried to come to this world through the Dragon Soar Arena. They will be imprisoned for 1,000 years too. Zen shook his head. It was definite a bad idea to come here through the Dragon Soar Arena if a person had no essence and blood of the genuine dragon family. In the lower world, virtual tribulation realm practitioners were highly powerful in the region where they came from. However, when they reached this city, they would be imprisoned for 1,000 years and were as obedient as cats. This rule of the Cyan Dragon was so. What shall I do now? Since you took me here, you must be able to find a way, right? Zen asked. A light smile crossed the Cyan Dragon's lips. Take out a piece of paper and the mixed ink, he said confidently. Zen nodded and laid out the pre-mixed ink and a rune paper on the ground in front of him. A tinge of the Cyan Dragon's soul was released after he raised the rune brush. When it merged with the brush, Zen began to draw on the paper. When the prisoners saw what Zen was doing, they grew curious. I didn't expect that you're a runic expert. Why did you come here through the Dragon Soar Arena? A practitioner asked with a smile. Although Zen was just a step away from the illuminating soul realm, he might be the lowest among these stowaways in terms of cultivation level. He didn't respond and continued to focus on drawing the divine texture instead. Hey, I'm talking to you, are you deaf? The practitioner who had asked Zen was an internal elixir realm master. He was an arrogant person in the lower world, so he couldn't help but be enraged when Zen, a nature creature, had ignored him. Why are you so noisy? If you shout again, we'll kill you. Several guards yelled as they walked towards the cell with spears in their hands. The practitioner crouched on one side in fright and didn't dare to make any noise again. Before, the practitioners had tried to fight against these guards when they first got out of the Dragon Soar Arena. However, even the virtual tribulation realm masters didn't get a chance to fight back before they were arrested. Moreover, this practitioner was just at the internal elixir realm level, so he was obviously no match for them. Some of the practitioners began to talk cautiously among themselves when they saw the divine texture Zen had drawn. It's unbelievable that he knows how to use perfect brushwork at such a young age. It was rare everywhere to see a runic expert who could use perfect brushwork. However, it wasn't Zen, but the cyan dragon himself who had drawn this divine texture. After the drawing was finished, the runic brush left a line of strange characters on the paper's margin. Zen couldn't read any of these characters, so he guessed that they were the dragon texture marks the cyan dragon had drawn. It's done. Give this divine texture paper to the guards and ask them to hand it over to the lord of the city, the cyan dragon said. Zen nodded and collected the things on the ground. Then, he walked towards the gate of the cell and carefully knocked on the iron bar. What is it? A gruff voice asked. The guards walked over and looked at Zen coldly. Please help me give this to the lord of the city, Zen said and passed that paper of divine texture to the guards. The lord, they looked at each other in surprise, then burst into laughter. Our city lord, don't you know what a big man he is? These practitioners from the lower world all acted the same way. Who do they think they are? That's why we should keep them in the prison for 1,000 years. This is the only way they'll know what kind of place this is. The guards said. Zen wasn't annoyed by what they said. He just waved the paper of divine texture in his hand and said, can you have a look at it before deciding to hand it over to the city lord or not? The guards glanced at the paper upon hearing Zen's words. When one of them saw the dragon texture marks on the margin, he was shocked. He grabbed the paper from Zen's hand and asked in a trembling voice, where did you get this? Chapter 423. The Blood of a Genuine Dragon. Zen just rolled his eyes when he saw that the guards got worked up over the divine texture. Just then, a voice seemed to speak in his mind. It was the cyan dragon. Just tell them that you encountered a Taoist priest called Josh in the lower world and he gave you the divine texture, he said. Zen nodded, then told the guards what the cyan dragon said to him. The guards cast each other serious glances upon hearing Zen's words. Shortly after, one guard nodded at Zen and opened the iron fence's door for him, and released him from the prison. The stowaways from the lower world looked at each other in amazement when they saw that Zen was released. What did the nature creature do? Why did they let him go? They wondered. You stay here, I'll report this matter to the lord of the city, the guard told Zen. After that, he rushed outside with the divine texture. Cyan dragon, what message did you leave on the divine texture? Zen asked. A sly smile crossed the cyan dragon's lips again. I just left a breath of my soul on it. The guard didn't recognize it, but he knew the dragon mark one left, he explained. I see, Zen nodded. The cyan dragon continued to tell Zen more about the place. The city they were in was not the main city of the genuine dragon world. It was built as a place where the dragon lineage human elites could cultivate. Even the members of dragon lineage human who had ascended to the upper world must pass the trial before they could enter the genuine dragon world. It was so that the genuine dragons made sure that those selected were geniuses of their race. On the other hand, the message the cyan dragon left on the divine texture was a request for Zen. He asked the lord of the city to give Zen a chance to train here. Zen knew this, and nodded in affirmation. If Zen wanted to embark on the top level of martial arts in his life as a martial artist, he must cultivate himself hard. Although the cyan dragon had helped him a lot, Zen couldn't rely on him all the time. The cyan dragon had saved him from 1,000 years in prison, which was indeed a great act of kindness he would never forget. Now, the training in the upper world that he asked for Zen was also another blessing. If Zen could take the trial, he would gain many benefits. Now that you have returned to your hometown, why don't you reveal yourself to them? Zen asked curiously. The mysterious furnace, the black flame, the cyan dragon, and the 8 other dragons in it were all a huge mystery to Zen, and that mystery had led him to where he was now. When the cyan dragon heard Zen's question, he got silent for a moment. Even if I come back, so what? Something that cannot be changed, still cannot be changed, he said with a heavy sigh. There was a hint of sadness in the cyan dragon's voice when he said those words. It made Zen feel sad as well. The cyan dragon had been on his mind for a long time and Zen thought highly of him. He had seen many great things. It was no doubt that nothing that happened in the lower world was even enough to surprise him. Now, it seemed that he also had a high position in the genuine dragon world. However, the sigh he just let out brought Zen a feeling of familiarity. It reminded him of the days when he suffered humiliation in the Luo clan. Perhaps, the Cyan dragon also had an unspeakable past. Zen didn't get to the bottom of it. He knew that with his current strength, he was still weak in the lower world, let alone in the city of the upper world, which lay on the outskirts of the genuine dragon world. He was just like a small speck of dust and couldn't offer any help to the Cyan dragon. Though he didn't have the ability, he did have the determination. After quite some time, the guard finally came back. He nodded calmly at Zen and threw him a token. I have informed the Lord, and he allowed you to train with the other cultivators. Come with me, he said. Zen gave him a knowing nod. He had no doubt about the Cyan dragon's capabilities, and he believed the city lord would even come to meet him in person if the Cyan dragon asked. Zen took the token and followed the guard out of the prison, while the envious eyes of the other stowaways in the cell stared at him. The guard led him through half of the city. What impressed Zen the most was the vast size of it. They rode a half-man, half-bird monster on the way, but it still took them a long time to get to their destination, which was another square of the city. The building there was huge, but not exquisite. After they landed at the square, two old men approached them. Zen couldn't gauge their cultivation bases. Maybe they had covered them up with a secret technique, or they had extremely high cultivation bases and Zen simply couldn't see them at all. Who is he? He is not a dragon lineage human, but just an ordinary human. Why was he sent here? One old man asked when he saw Zen. No, there seems to be a trace of flood dragon force in his body. He might have absorbed the blood of the flood dragon. But even then, he still could not be regarded as a dragon lineage human, another old man added with a shake of his head. Just then, the guard who had brought Zen to this place spoke up. The Lord has granted him a token, and said that this person was specially approved to participate in the training. Is this an order from the Lord? There was a look of surprise on the old man's face. He took a closer look at Zen and wondered what kind of relationship there was between he and the city lord. He could not figure out how the Lord had anything to do with this guy, who was merely a nature creature. He thought that since the Lord didn't show up, they had an ordinary relationship. He felt relieved when he thought about it. In that case, come with me. I'll let you get the blood of the genuine dragon first. Then, I will take you to participate in the training, the old man said. The blood of the genuine dragon? Zen was stunned. He did not expect to get the blood of the genuine dragon just by participating in the training. Every dragon lineage human that has ascended to the upper world can receive a drop of genuine dragon blood to increase the concentration of blood in their bodies. Although you are an outsider, you can also receive a drop of genuine dragon blood according to the usual practice, since the Lord has approved, the old man said with a nod. The dragon lineage human was the human being who had inherited the dragon lineage. The blood concentration in the dragon lineage humans varied. Some people had a low blood concentration in their bodies, while others had a high blood concentration. For instance, Trasis' body had a medium concentration of Blue Phoenix's blood. However, no matter how high or low it was, they would be given a drop of genuine dragon blood. Give me the token. I will use it to get the blood of the genuine dragon, said the old man. Zen handed over the token, as he told the Cyan dragon in his mind, your dragon family is really generous. Hey, we're genuine dragons. An adult genuine dragon is thousands of miles long. Its blood can drown out the entire central region. So 1 or 2 drops of blood of genuine dragon isn't really much, he said confidently. The Cyan dragon seemed to have fun poking at Zen's ignorance. Zen clicked his tongue in admiration. This super legendary beast's power was really beyond his imagination. Come with me, the old man told Zen. After the old man took Zen across the square, they arrived in front of a purple hall. He asked Zen to wait outside before he went inside the purple hall. After a while, the old man came out. He threw the token along with a small jade bottle towards Zen. There are several rooms for cultivating over there. You may choose one to absorb this drop of genuine dragon blood. Come to me after you have absorbed it. And then you can participate in the training, he said. Zen held the bottle in his hand and felt as if there was a living thing that wanted to escape inside it. Following what the old man had said, Zen randomly picked out a training chamber. He closed the door and sat down on his knees above a futon, then carefully opened the small bottle. Pop! An oval drop of blood jumped out of the little bottle and floated in front of him. Although it was only a drop of a genuine dragon's blood, Zen could feel its indescribable power. If you keep watching, you might as well let me swallow it up, the Cyan dragon said in jest. Of course, Zen knew he was just joking. He played along and said with a pout, there is only one drop. Let you swallow it up. No way. After that, he stretched 2 fingers, which sent out a plume of life vitality. It quickly wrapped around the drop of blood, and went into his mouth. The blood of Flood Dragon that he had immersed his body in when he was on the Cloud Road was very thick. Even if it was splashed outside, it would automatically coagulate into one body. Zen had thought that blood was amazing before he saw how unbelievable the blood of genuine dragon was. This drop of blood from a genuine dragon seemed to be spiritual. It was trying to break free from Zen's life vitality. However, the power of merely one drop of blood was still too weak, and ultimately it couldn't escape its fate of being swallowed up by Zen. When Zen had swallowed down the blood, he felt that the blood in his whole body seemed to boil gradually. Then, the drop of dragon blood quickly spread throughout his body and blended with his own blood. Chapter 424, The Obelisks. Zen felt power course through his veins. The legendary beast's blood mingled with his own, his body flushing at the sudden surge of strength. He could feel his flesh stretch and tighten, like a wall trying to contain the energy threatening to burst forth from within. It was a long time before his skin went back to its original complexion. Phew, Zen heaved. Inside him, there was an unmistakable warm glow, as if every pore in his body was opening. With the drop of genuine dragon blood in his vessels, Zen was, in a sense, a dragon lineage human. He came out of the practice room and was face to face with the old man once again, his age-wizened eyes boring into his. After a long look, his face broke into a calm smile and he remarked, "You look much better." The old man took a step back and continued, "Now you are one of the dragon lineage humans. Come with me." Following the old man's steps, Zen walked past the building and saw the obelisks in the distance. Countless practitioners sat behind the stone pillar, their faces wrought in concentration, as if deciphering a puzzle. They were some distance away from the obelisks, but Zen had sensed an aura of mystery about them. Those obelisks, Zen had just opened his mouth, but was cut short by the old man. He already knew what Zen was about to ask. Those pillars that you see are obelisks of souls that contain the power of various original laws. Visualizing them enables one to grasp the old teachings more deeply. Zen gasped as he looked at the massive obelisks towering over them. On Cloud Road, he had obtained a broken stone carving about the size of a palm. And yet, right here in front of him were so many obelisks, each one of them 1,000 times larger than the stone carving, and they stood in glorious completion. In the process of grasping the old laws, you will have to put your soul on the obelisk of souls. It would grant you a deeper connection to spiritual energy, but a word of caution, the old man paused, throwing a short but meaningful glance to Zen before continuing, "Do not take on too much. Otherwise, there will be irreparable damage to your soul. Such a short-sighted gain would be all for naught." Zen nodded in understanding. Then, he approached the obelisks and walked around, taking in their forms one at a time. Each of the huge pillars was hundreds of feet high, all of them shrouded in a gray, mysterious aura. Zen marveled at the obelisks. No two were the same. Some of them emitted a scorching smell, and Zen recognized the inscriptions on one hard surface. It was the script of the fire law. The heat dissipated as he moved along to others. This time, a freezing mist emanated from the obelisks. These must be the ice laws, Zen thought to himself. His heart was pounding as he continued to circle the obelisks, understanding dawning upon him. On these surfaces were recorded various original laws. The pillars stood over him in their grandiose strength, almost forbidding in their power. These laws were the purest forms of intent. Zen's sword intent, for instance, was an extension of the metal law. The extreme thunder sword intent, which Rocher had mastered, was the fusion of the sword intent and the thunder law. The connections between intents and the original laws were deep and inherent. However, it was much easier to master intents after grasping original laws. After all kinds of intents sprung forth from these laws. Eventually, Zen paused at a cyan obelisk. There was an uncanny feeling of familiarity that drew him to the pillar. There is the power of space within this obelisk, Zen thought to himself, surprised even at his own certainty. When he first passed through the space windstorm, he was able to have a small grasp of the space law from it. Then, through the broken pieces of the space on the Cloud Road and the stone carving, he was able to understand even more, but his knowledge was fragmented, like small pieces hovering in his mind without him understanding where the different parts connected. Now, standing in front of the obelisk containing the space law, he was filled with desire to understand it fully. It was as if the obelisk was calling out to him. He could almost taste its power, and his body thrummed in anticipation. Zen sat on the ground and closed his eyes in meditation, like the other practitioners in the field. The old man of the dragon lineage human had been watching him since he approached the obelisks and was surprised at his choice. How interesting, he thought to himself. The boy chose the obelisk that records the space law. If time is king, space is ruler. The two laws are the most powerful among all the original laws, but they are also the most difficult to master. For this boy to choose this, he definitely has courage, he spoke to himself. Zen took a deep breath and focused. His senses were awake. He could feel the air on his skin, and the earth vibrating under his feet. Soul visualization is using the soul to touch the obelisk, Zen said to himself calmly. Then, a thread of his soul came out of his body and stretched out like a wisp of smoke, gradually approaching the obelisk in front of him. Once the strand touched the surface, his soul was suddenly pulled into the pillar. Zen was startled at the sudden happening. He was now attached to the obelisk as a simple soul. Looking up, he saw that the souls of other practitioners were climbing up the obelisk. Some of them were already at the middle. It shouldn't be too hard to climb the obelisk. Without hesitation, Zen followed suit and started to climb. The soul was weightless, so Zen speculated that it would not take much to reach the top. However, as he took a step upward, the inscriptions on the obelisk extended a repulsive force, as if trying to push him away. This must be from the space law. It is testing me, Zen reckoned. With my understanding of the space law, this would not be enough to push me away. Steeling himself, Zen gripped the obelisk and slowly moved upward. After scaling 10 feet, he felt the force from the obelisk grow. Against its repulsive force, the slightest distraction would cost him and he would be pushed down. Zen furrowed his brows, slowing his ascent. I never thought it would be so difficult to climb the obelisk. Zen gritted his teeth against the force, realizing that his earlier guess was definitely wrong. Just then, a soul above him was pushed down. The moment the soul was pushed away, one of the practitioners sitting on the ground fell forward with a violent tremble. When he got up, there was a faint trace of blood on the corner of his mouth, and his face had a hollow look. It seemed that his soul was badly hurt. He must have forced himself too much. If I'm not careful, I'll end up just like him. Witnessing the cruel scene, Zen felt a small seed of fear growing in him. However, he had never been someone who cowered, even in the face of cold terror. There was no way he would pass up the opportunity that many could only dream of. Cautioning himself, he began to ponder on how to overcome the repulsion. If the force kept getting stronger, there was no way he could stay on the obelisk. Just then, the lines on the obelisk caught his eye. He noticed that the haphazard lines seemed to be arranged in a regular pattern. His eyes flickered with realization. The obelisk and its inscription existed to be comprehended by a practitioner. Without proper understanding of the law, one would not be able to climb it. With this newfound insight, Zen took another glance at the other souls. He watched as some stayed in their position, their eyes glued to the writings on the surface. I see now, Zen nodded slightly. He was no longer in a hurry to climb. Taking his time to observe the obelisk, he was soon immersed in its dense lines. Zen began to meditate, and his mind was freed from all thought. At that moment, all that remained was only his soul and the intricate lines of the pillar. At this point, he heard the cyan dragon's voice echo in his mind. This boy, he truly possesses remarkable understanding. A dragon of his stature was rarely in awe of anything, but he couldn't help but admire Zen's persistence. The space law flooded Zen's mind as he focused on the mysterious lines, trying to disentangle the string of words and symbols as they filled him. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Zen's soul had been lying motionless on the obelisk, trying to grasp the law in it. After what seemed to be an eternity, Zen sensed the gradual waning of the repulsive force from the obelisk. I was right, he said to himself. The deeper the understanding of the laws, the higher a soul can climb, Zen concluded. By the time Zen almost fully comprehended the space law, he could barely feel the obelisk's repulsion. Now, feeling much lighter, Zen started to climb up again. This time he picked up his pace, climbing up 50 or 60 feet at a stretch. Along the way, he passed the souls of many other practitioners. One of them was at the internal elixir realm, and he relied on his understanding of the space law to resist the repulsive force. When he saw Zen pass himself so quickly, he looked astonished. Is this guy crazy? He muttered in bemusement. And perhaps Zen was, indeed. At his speed, the 20 or 30 practitioners above him were left behind almost instantaneously. Chapter 425, The Provocation from a Monkey. What? An incredible expression also appeared on the face of the old man who had brought Zen here. His duty was to identify those talented people from the lower world, who were good at learning the law power. After all, it was almost impossible for the disciples from the lower world to have such a high level of law power, the contents of which were recorded on these obelisks. For example, Level 1 Fire Law was recorded on the obelisk of Fire Law and Level 1 Space Law was written on the obelisk where Zen was. This guy has finished a third of the journey in such a short time, which indicates that he has grasped a small part of Level 1 of Space Law. How can he climb so fast? The old man thought, surprised. It was a rare opportunity to acquire the knowledge on the obelisk. So some martial arts cultivators had stayed here for a long time. The men from dragon lineage human had been here for half a year, or even longer. It was relatively easier to learn law power directly from the obelisk. However, the old man had never seen a man climb so quickly on the obelisk of Space Law. The only possible explanation is that the boy has studied Space Law before and has some achievements, which allow him to climb so fast. Once he stops, he may not be able to climb up any further. The old man rationalized as he tried to think of a convincing reason. It seemed that this was the only explanation for Zen's speed. What the old man wasn't aware of was that Zen had merely learned a small part of Space Law by chance. The space repulsion grew more intense when Zen climbed about 100 feet. At this stage, he felt a sharp pain. The space repulsion is getting stronger and stronger. I need to stop now. Thinking of this, Zen stopped climbing and continued to learn the law power on the obelisk. By this time, he was ahead of most cultivators on the obelisks. Only a few people were ahead of him now. The old man kept staring at Zen as he wanted to prove his suspicion to be right. At this moment, a middle-aged man accompanied by several young martial artists approached the old man. That man said to the old man with a strange expression, "Elder Wei, how many elite disciples did you select this time?" Elder Wei answered coldly with a frown, "None. Have you selected suitable candidates?" The middle-aged person beckoned to several young people behind him and laughed, "These 4 men of our dragon lineage human will definitely be elected as the elites." Ha ha. There were 2 men and 2 women standing alongside the middle-aged man. They had reached a high level of cultivation base. Hearing what the middle-aged man said, they suddenly became quite confident. These 4 people were undoubtedly the most outstanding people from dragon lineage human. They not only had a high cultivation base and basic skills, but they also had an impeccable pedigree. Then Elder Wei looked up and down the 4 young disciples and said with a faint smile, "Zach. Congratulations. I wish all of them are selected as elites." The old man gnashed his teeth as he spoke. Elder Wei was one of the guides of dragon lineage human. It was normal for guides to compete with each other. The fact that Zach selected several young cultivators with a great gift and then showed them to Elder Wei made him very angry. However, these young martial artists didn't know what Elder Wei meant. One of them even bowed to him and said with a laugh, "Elder Wei. With your blessing, we will certainly make it." Humph, Elder Wei's face was clouded. He didn't want to speak to these young disciples anymore. He began to look at Zen again and wondered what was wrong with him. He shrieked when he caught sight of Zen again. How did this boy continue to climb further? Elder Wei was too surprised to speak. Before the conversation with Zach, Zen had been stopped by the strong spatial repulsion. It appeared as though he couldn't climb anymore. Who would have expected that Zen would rise at an alarming speed? 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. Before long, Zen had reached the second half of the obelisk of Space Law. Wow, he learns the law so fast. Elder Wei muttered with an amazed expression. Although the law power recorded on the obelisk was merely at level 1, it was extremely difficult to learn. And Space Law was even harder to grasp. If this guy were climbing on merit, he would certainly be qualified to be an elite. "Oh, yes, this young man belongs to my team," Elder Wei mumbled, patting himself on the back. He had almost forgotten that Zen was a cultivator on his team. He had ignored Zen mainly because this boy didn't have the blood of genuine dragon in his veins. In fact, Zen earned a place in this competition because of the city lord. Seeing Elder Wei's surprised expression, Zach looked at the stone tablet that was not far from them. A sardonic expression replaced his smile when Zach realized that Zen had finished more than half of the journey on the obelisk of Space Law. Then he said to the several martial artists behind him, "Now, it's time for you to learn the law power on the obelisks. I have told you what I know. Now, you have to climb up the stone tablets to understand the rest." Yes, Elder Zhao, one of the cultivators spoke, I'll also choose to learn space law. Zack waved at him and said with a laugh, Christopher, compete with that boy. You can climb further in the blink of an eye. I believe in your talent. Christopher Shu nodded in agreement and sat in meditation beside the obelisk. As soon as his soul was attached to the stone tablet, Christopher began to climb. Within minutes, he had overtaken most of the cultivators. Haha, Christopher has learned a big part of the level 1 of space law. It is so easy for him to learn the law power, Zack said happily. Elder Wei's face darkened when he saw that Christopher was about to climb ahead of Zen. Christopher Shu climbed so fast. It appeared as though the spatial repulsion didn't exist at all. However, Zen was still concentrating on studying the law power on the obelisk. He didn't notice Christopher approaching him. Christopher gave Zen a challenging look when he reached Zen's side. Zen shot him a surprised backward glance before continuing to study the space law on the stone tablet. It had never occurred to him that he was a valuable chip in the competition between two elders. Christopher continued to climb. He didn't stop until he consolidated his lead in this competition. Then he said to Zen, Haha, boy, you are as slow as a tortoise. Where is this idiot from? Zen thought with a frown. However, he chose to pay no attention to Christopher's taunt and kept on studying the law power. To his surprise, Christopher climbed down unexpectedly and spoke again, I am talking to you. Do you hear me? As an influential figure in the lower world, Christopher grew up with the feeling that he ought to be respected. He was outraged when Zen ignored him. Could you please not climb up and down like a monkey? Driven beyond endurance, Zen shouted. Climbing up and down also needs skills. Boy, come on, go ahead of me. Christopher sneered. Zen didn't talk anymore. On the contrary, he shifted his focus to the knowledge on the obelisk. He was unwilling to take notice of this kind of boring provocation. Moreover, he had climbed the obelisk to learn space law, not to compete with others. Seeing that Zen didn't want to talk to him, Christopher got bored and then climbed up again. However, Christopher stopped climbing after about 20 feet as he needed to learn the new knowledge on the obelisk. Otherwise, he would fall from the stone tablet as a result of the strong spatial repulsion. Of course, Christopher was confident of his capability and was sure that he could grasp level 1 of space law in a short time. However, at this moment, Zen also began to climb, his eyes glistening. Chapter 426, Baptism by Laws. Christopher's original plan was to stop and try to understand the law in the obelisk before climbing up, but the space repulsion was becoming stronger and stronger. If he continued to climb in this way, he would be pulled down by the repulsion in no time. But then he saw Zen climbing. Christopher had always been proud of the talent he was born with and considered himself superior in that regard. Seeing Zen climbing while he was stuck in this dilemma made his blood boil. He could not let this happen. The very thought of defeat was unacceptable to him, especially against Zen. He was only short of 80 or 90 feet from the top of the obelisk. Both of them climbed with fast pace. The only difference was that Christopher was desperate and anxious while Zen was relaxed and composed. After understanding the space law in the first half of the obelisk, he had figured how to suppress the pull of the space repulsion, which then became much softer than before. As a result, he was able to climb much quicker and without any opposing forces affecting him. On the other hand, Christopher's situation was bad. Before they began the climb, he was under the impression that his understanding of the space law was much better than Zen's. At the near end of the obelisk, he had almost reached the limit of resistance. He couldn't stop to comprehend the space law under such a critical situation. He had no strength to go on, but he didn't stop. Defeat was not an option. He gritted his teeth to summon up the courage and power to resist the space repulsion and hurled himself higher. But the higher he climbed, the stronger the repulsion became. Each movement was harder than the one before. While their souls climbed the obelisk, their bodies sat still on the ground. Christopher's body had turned red and was constantly shaking, while Zen's body sat in peace, just like his soul. He behaved calmly and his breath was steady. At last, the climb came to a halt. The two seemed to have reached the final part at the same time, which was only 30 feet below the top. Both of them couldn't go ahead from this point. There was an invisible barrier blocking their path. It was the space barrier. Seems like we have to stop, Zen said, blinking aggressively. He still needed some time to comprehend the space law to break through the barrier before them. But that wasn't a big problem as he already had some knowledge of it. Even at this height, the space repulsion didn't exert a lot of impact on him. Next to him, Christopher stood passively. His situation wasn't so good. He had been relying on the solid force of his soul to keep going further with a lot of difficulty, hoping to reach the top without any stops. In the face of this sudden barrier, he was caught off guard. His senseless rush had to be brought to a stop. The flimsy space barrier lay like a natural pit across him. With the strength that remained, it was impossible for him to force his way through. He couldn't meditate the space law under the strong space repulsion. He saw Zen adapting to the new surroundings effortlessly. Right then, Zen cast a glance at Christopher, shaking head slightly, and then continued to ponder over the space law, with a faint smile on his face. The smile made Christopher lose his mind. Under the obelisk, Elder Wei stood with a happy smile on his face. This boy does not even have a strong bloodline, yet his skills and depth of understanding are amazing. It seems like we are harboring another elite disciple in the Dragon Abyss Palace. Elder Wei belonged to one of the dragon lineage human forces called Dragon Abyss Palace. Zhak Zhao belonged to another force of dragon lineage human called Dragon Blaze Hall. Elder Wei clapped with joy. On the contrary, Zhak stood annoyed and unhappy, stomping his feet with nervousness. He could also see the current status on the obelisk. At the first phase of climbing, Christopher's speed was really fast. But that had nothing to do with the power of his understanding. It was mostly driven by the experience he had attained in the lower world. He had already comprehended much of the space law there, which should help him fight with the space impulsion from the obelisk. If he could behave sedately and gradually understand the space law on the highest phase, he wouldn't have a lot of difficulty climbing to the top. But he wasn't focusing on winning, but rather on competing with Zen. Zhak was concerned about his behavior, knowing that his situation was awkward. Christopher needed to understand the space law in order to go further with such a strong space impulsion against him. Zhak wished he hadn't decided to use his remaining solid power of his soul to go further, as it was almost completely exhausted. Only a silly and foolish disciple would do that. It didn't matter what the elders were thinking at the base of the obelisk. Zen especially didn't care about what other people expected and thought of him. He calmed himself down and concentrated all his mind to feel the lines of the space law that spread across the obelisk. To climb to the top of the obelisk, one option was to directly break through the space barrier by force. Zen considered that option too, but it was obviously impossible for him to do that. The space barrier was created by complying with certain rules of the space law. He only needed to figure out what the rule was and then he would be able to pass through the barrier. Besides mentally trying to comprehend the rule, Zen also tried to touch the barrier with his soul. As he had assumed, the inner side of the barrier was a space independent in itself. He wondered if he would be able to travel freely if he fully understood the space law of this layer. As he thought deeper and deeper about it, he got really excited. The space law was one of the most powerful laws among the original laws. It was said, if time was a king, then space was the ruler, which best described the power of these two original laws. There were many geniuses in the vast central region who could comprehend the original laws, and even more who could understand the conceptions that were derived out of them. However, there weren't many warriors who had made great achievements in the understanding of the space law and the time law. For example, Morphin's mystical pace was the basic implementation of the space law. The core logic was to first shake the space by sudden and enormous force, thus making the space unsteady, which would then generate black lines like those that had appeared on the Cloud Road during the trials. The black lines were a symptom of space collapse. Morphins could use these black lines to move around, hiding his body movement in the space, keeping him from being sensed by his opponents. The method he used was called mystical pace, which meant a pace which was so agile that it could confuse anyone. This was the fundamental use of the first-level space law. Such an implementation wasn't really of a very high level. Zen could easily make use of it. He had tried this many times in Cloud Road. But he didn't have the terrific power that Morphins owned to force the space into unsteadiness and create the black lines. If Zen understood the space law in the obelisk completely, he wouldn't need any force to cross the barrier and could travel for the short distance in the air. Zen couldn't contain his excitement at the thought. The only question remaining now was how he could pass through the transparent space barrier, using what he had understood about the space law. As Zen gradually absorbed himself in the space law, Christopher finally understood that if he kept competing with Zen this way, he would be shot out of obelisk in no time, which would bring no benefits, obviously, and also hurt his soul. Injuries on the soul did not impact him greatly as he had confidence in recovery. But his most outstanding characteristic was not the mastery of the space law, but the capacity of his soul. Even though he could obtain various panaceas to heal his soul from the great powers he was born into, he did not want to challenge himself at the expense of his health. Moreover, it would be humiliated for him to fall from the obelisk in front of so many refiners. Having struggled both physically and mentally, Christopher finally decided to give up and started to step down from the obelisk to where the space impulsion was within his ability. I must learn the space law step by step to improve. I have never figured Zen would be good at the understanding of the space law, but that's okay. I shall have many opportunities to defeat him in the future, Christopher thought, consoling himself, as he stepped down. While this was happening, Zen was completely immersed in the comprehension of the space law. He stared at the lines of the obelisk and was completely unaware that Christopher had left. As he gazed at the lines with utter concentration, his memory of the space law reflected in his mind, like two rivers meeting in an estuary, like a jigsaw puzzle coming to fruition. As these pieces were combined to make a full picture, the key point of the space law suddenly hit him. He squinted his eyes at the space barrier again, this time with a confident smile on his face. Space barrier. I can break it, he reminded himself. With this newfound confidence, he stopped clinging to the obelisk and let his hands go. His body lifted up in the air and he started to pass through the barrier with a sudden rush. This space barrier could not have been broken by any physical force or through the soul. Zen's intention was never to break the barrier, but to pass through it. And that was what he was doing now. His soul was like a fish swimming in the water effortlessly. He floated through the barrier with grace and finally reached the top. Looking at Zen at the summit, Elder Wei smiled with immense glee and said with a tone of surprise, in less than 6 hours of time, he has transformed from being completely unaware of the space law to having full understanding of the first level of it. I think the word elite is not enough to describe his talent. He looked all around him and burst into a happy laughter. Less than 6 hours, Zack thought with shock. His heart was frightened to hear that. The obelisk was engraved with the existing space law to save refiners from exploring it bit by bit everywhere, but it didn't mean that the time could be shortened to as short as only 6 hours. At least, Zack had never heard of such a miracle. In that case, this young man really is genius. A genius of geniuses. From which lower word did this man come from? He wondered. The two elders, Zack and Wei, didn't get much time to think or discuss anything, because all the law obelisks around them suddenly started to tremble, producing a great sound and ultimately, a chaos among the viewers. The obelisks shook as if there was an earthquake, but that was impossible. Confused, Elder Wei looked up. He saw flashes of law power shooting at Zen, all converged together. What is this? Is this the baptism by laws? His eyes glistened with wonder, enchantment and total surprise. Chapter 427, Scramble. These obelisks could be dated back to ancient times. The words on them were engraved by master cultivators from the genuine dragons, as they had a better understanding of laws than mortals. Cultivators from the lower world could not compete with them in terms of comprehension of laws. Thus, these obelisks were placed here to help dragon lineage humans from the lower world to improve their understanding of laws. Among the varieties of laws, the fundamentals included fire law, wind law, time law, space law, and so forth. Laws evolved from these fundamentals were numerous. For example, the artistic mountain conception was an evolution of the earth law, and the heavenly law was a satori from both the nature and metal law by weapon refiners. Cultivators had varying affinities with different laws. Zen had chosen an obelisk that recorded information about the space law to cultivate. Elder Wei believed that Zen had enough affinity with the space law, which would aid in his understanding and cultivation. Watching the events unfold in front of him, Elder Wei found that he had been wrong. His theory was far from the truth. Everyone turned their eyes to the top of Zen's obelisk, including the cultivators who were still attached to other obelisks. No one could stop staring. Such a strange thing had never happened before, at least in their lifetime. Everyone was confused, even Elder Wei. After thinking for a while, he finally realized that it was the legendary baptism by laws. As for other people present, they had never heard about the baptism by laws, and hence, they could not figure out what was happening. All they could see was that the obelisk was constantly shaking, and the law power continuously converging towards Zen. Every cultivator envied him. What was worse, as the obelisks were shaking so wildly, some cultivators' souls could not stay attached to their obelisks. Most of them had struggled to reach a safe place on the obelisks. Some cultivators were not so lucky. As the shaking continued, more and more cultivators' souls were knocked down. This was definitely a horrible accident. Since baptism by laws was not a mystery for the elders, Zach Zhao also figured out what was happening. Baptism by laws, it has not happened for so many years. Baptism by laws would not improve the strength of a cultivator. As a result, even though Zen was experiencing it, his strength and cultivation would not be boosted. Baptism by laws was simply a way to increase a cultivator's affinities with laws. Cultivators were born with affinities for certain laws to some extent. Some had close affinities with the thunder law, while others had special affinities with the wind law. And Zen, a typical example, showed his close affinity with space law by achieving a little power of space law through space transmission. What was more, after going through the baptism by laws, his affinities would be increased for all laws. That was to say, if Zen were to cultivate the thunder law or fire law, he would not meet many troubles. This was a gift. If a cultivator wanted to get a baptism of laws, he or she had no choice but to wait for the chance. Zach and Wei had been elders for many years. All the information they had about baptism by laws came from other people. Unfortunately, neither of them had seen such an event. They would never have imagined that such a miracle would happen and that Zen would receive the gift. Christopher was among the cultivators. He was now securely attached to his obelisk and staring at Zen with hatred. Although he didn't get a chance to figure out what was happening, what he did know was that Zen had taken center stage. Christopher was born into a noble family with noble blood. And the blood of the genuine dragon in his body was the richest in his whole family. Even his ancestors could not compete with him. He had been the focus of everyone's attention ever since he was born. People envied him from his childhood. As soon as he reached the age of 20, Christopher was sent to the Dragon Soar Arena. He was supposed to fly to the upper world and become a member of the great race, the dragon lineage human. In the beginning, Christopher thought that even though he was now one of the dragon lineage humans, he would still be a privileged person, who would be surrounded by praise and envy. However, something happened that was beyond his expectation. As a new cultivator here, he had not shown his talent yet, and everyone's attention had been focused on this young man in front of him. Zen had stolen his spotlight. How could Christopher tolerate this? But he knew there was nothing he could do about it. Christopher couldn't even climb the obelisk of the space law. Was he eligible to judge? Christopher gritted his teeth and refused to focus on the unfairness of this situation. He continued to cultivate the law power from the obelisk because he was determined not to lose to anyone. Standing on the high peak of the obelisk, Zen silently received the baptism from the law power. Although the law power was continually washing his soul, he didn't feel much. As the baptism continued, Zen sensed a connection with these obelisks. But this was not the actual state. To be more accurate, it was a connection between Zen and the law powers. It seems, these obelisks are calling me, Zen murmured. He didn't summon his soul to his body until the law power finished the baptism. He opened his eyes and stood slowly. Something had changed. Mr. I don't know your name, my friend. As soon as Zen stood, Elder Wei quickly approached Zen, with a warm smile on his face. His attitude towards Zen had changed from before. Previously, Elder Wei didn't take Zen seriously because he was not a clansman of the dragon lineage, but a stowaway who only had a few drops of flood dragon's blood in his body. Moreover, according to the rules, he would be imprisoned for 1,000 years. Zen was lucky as the landlord had asked Elder Wei to take care of him. That was why Elder Wei had broken the rules and gave a drop of genuine dragon's blood to Zen to protect him from being imprisoned. You don't even know his name. So he could not have been a member of your Dragon Abyss Palace, right? That's great. My friend, are you interested in joining our Dragon Blaze Hall? There are 316 halls and 300 palaces here. We are confident that Dragon Blaze Hall can make it to the top 200. If you join us, I can bet that you will do well in the future. Zach said, with a big smile on his face. Zach was unfamiliar with Zen's potential and talent, and both his cultivation and strength were not insignificant. Zach only wanted to recruit Zen because the laws had baptized him. After all, baptism by laws could be very helpful in his further cultivation. In the future, Zen would have close affinities with any laws, which meant that he would not face obstacles when cultivating laws. Zach had been guiding cultivators from the lower world for numerous years. He had tremendous experience in identifying and selecting good cultivators. Of course, he knew the importance of baptism by laws. After hearing Zach's proposal, Elder Wei's face darkened. He said coldly, Zach, this friend has consumed a drop of genuine dragon's blood from the Dragon Abyss Palace. Isn't it quite impolite for you to poach him from us? I think you should know that we are not easy to mess with. Oh, no wonder the blood of the genuine dragon inside him is weak. It turns out that Dragon Abyss Palace has merely given him a drop of genuine dragon's blood. How generous you are. Zack smiled ironically and continued, my friend, if you join Dragon Blaze Hall, I will give you 10 drops of genuine dragon's blood right now. What do you think? It's a great deal, right? Nonsense. Leave him alone. We are not so stingy. After I report your achievement to our supervisor, you will get everything you want. 10 drops of genuine dragon's blood are not worth speaking of. Not to be outdone, Elder Wei fought back. Zen was speechless. Zen hadn't intended to join any party when he flew to the genuine dragon world from the Dragon Soar Arena. However, the rules seemed not to work like that. Zen had to choose one party, and it was hard for him to resist the temptation being offered to him. Zen had previously thought of completing the trials here and then returning to the central region, as there were still many issues that needed to be worked out, especially saving Yan, who was the most important person in his life. He had not expected things to go in a different direction. Before him stood 2 elders, scrabbling to secure him for their group. 10 drops of genuine dragon's blood. Only 1 drop was enough for Zen to feel a dramatic change in his blood and veins. If he consumed 10 drops of blood, the change would be more fierce than Zen could imagine. Finally, Zen nodded to Elder Wei, Sir, my name is Zen Luo. As I was in a hurry, I couldn't tell you my name in time. It's my fault, please forgive me. After hearing his reply, the warm smile returned to Elder Wei's face. Of course I forgive you, my friend. Zen is a good name. Now that you have succeeded in the challenge of your obelisk, and are lucky to have ranked as an elite, you are qualified to take the next trial. Since you have just received the baptism by laws, you can also choose to cultivate laws on other obelisks. The choice is yours. I would like to cultivate other laws first, Zen said promptly. He had now realized that the phenomenon he had endured was called baptism by laws. As he was going through the baptism by laws, Zen felt a strong desire to cultivate the other obelisks. But he couldn't do that before because of the restrictions. Now, there was no reason for him to miss the chance. Zen and Elder Wei ignored Zack and continued to have a pleasant conversation. Zack's face darkened as he was in a bad mood. Chapter 428. The Martial Arts Contest. Both the Dragon Abyss Palace and Dragon Blaze Hall were institutions run by the dragon lineage humans, which were beyond Zen's reach. Even if he had to join the Dragon Abyss Palace, it was no loss for him, but benefits. Now, he only cared to improve his strength. Since he had developed an affinity for other laws, Zen wanted to study the other obelisks and acquire their knowledge. After walking around the forest of obelisks a few times, Zen chose the obelisk that recorded fire law. Without hesitation, he sat under the obelisk and started his meditation. At the same time, in the central region, the competition for the Dragon Soar Arena reached a critical phase. Each sect was arguing that the Dragon Soar Arena rightfully belonged to them, and each sect was trying to depreciate the other sects. They were quoting everything they could to prove that they were the rightful owner of the arena. More and more forces joined the debate, including the independent cultivators. These cultivators were not members of any sect. They were master cultivators who developed on their own. However, they had protégés and offsprings to look after, and some wanted to start their sects, which was why they were also fighting for the arena. The argument continued between the people coveting the arena. During the heated debate, the sects and independent cultivators learned that the only way to obtain the arena was to show military force. And only the strongest would win. Although everyone coveted the arena, they had no idea what they were fighting for. They believed that the arena was a passage to higher places. However, it was a road of no return. The only thing the arena could bring them was death. When human cultivators entered, they would be imprisoned by the dragon for 1,000 years. Without no escape, the powerful cultivators could only age, decay, and die. Moreover, when Zen was transported to the higher place, the cyan dragon had tampered with the divine texture etched on the arena. After that, even if someone passed through the 6th floor of the arena, the circular pattern would only push them out, not transport them up again. If the cultivators had known that, they'd feel stupid about clamoring to claim the arena. It was irrational for all these sects to start wars among themselves for a blocked passage that would only bring death. However, just before the situation became out of control, the dispute was settled by the World Commercial Alliance when it stood out and mediated among various forces. Although the World Commercial Alliance was not a sect, it had great power and influence in the central region. More significantly, it had good relations with all major sects and a neutral stance. The alliance was the only force that could settle disputes and establish peace. And the proposal they tabled was simple. They suggested transporting the arena to Oracle City, which was the location of the World Commercial Alliance's headquarters. Then, a martial arts contest would be held for all the sects and independent cultivators. However, there were strict restrictions on the participants. All contestants had to be under the preliminary stage of the internal elixir realm, as it would be unfair for the young cultivators if the masters were allowed. After the contest, the person who won the first place would have the arena. The World Commercial Alliance would reward the second and third places, and the prize would be generous as one could imagine. In fact, such contests were held regularly by the World Commercial Alliance. Every 10 years, the alliance would organize a grand tournament, inviting all the sects of the central region. Although the contests were expensive, it was an important way for the alliance to maintain good relations with all the level 4 and level 5 sects. Through the tournament, the alliance would befriend the young talents of major sects. Such liaisons allowed the alliance to do business with various sects. Little by little, they had built tremendous influence and strength, surpassing that of all the sects except the ethereal spirit sect. Therefore, the cultivators didn't find it strange when they heard the alliance's suggestion. After all, there was little difference between this tournament and the old ones. After thorough consideration, most sects accepted the proposal and agreed to join. And their choice was rational. If they disapproved of the proposal, the ones fighting for the arena would be the master cultivators, instead of young, talented disciples. And if that were the case, the whole central region would be in danger of being destroyed. The Dragon Soar Arena was indeed a rare treasure, but no one wanted to acquire it at the price of slaughtering trillions. After a discussion, all the major sects including Cloud Hall, Bloodwood Cliff, and Mysterious Luna Hall accepted the offer. The World Commercial Alliance began to prepare for the Central Region Martial Arts Contest at Oracle City. Hearing the news, all the young men rubbed their hands in excitement. If they could win the Dragon Soar Arena for their sects, they'd be rewarded with support and resources. Although the first prize was difficult to win, all the top 10 winners would be highly rewarded. The World Commercial Alliance wasn't frugal. The prizes they offered were great treasures. In the following weeks, the proposal and upcoming contest became the talk of the town. Even some hermits were said to enlist for the tournament, aiming to win a good place in the competition. Since Zen was cultivating in a remote city in the genuine dragon world, he knew nothing about the tournament. After the baptism by laws, he had strengthened his connections with all the laws, but he didn't randomly choose any law to learn. Like Space Law or Thunder Law, most rules were divided into 10 levels, and the higher level one learned, the higher the strength in the field he could use. These obelisks, however, recorded only the first level of various rules, the most accessible level. Thus, Zen chose only the obelisks that documented the original laws, such as thunder, fire, earth, and wind. These were the fundamental laws that made up the entire physical world. If a cultivator wanted to achieve great success in martial arts, he had to understand the original laws. It was essential for Zen to understand these basic rules. It took Zen 3 days to read the obelisks, one after another, thus giving him greater knowledge of the first stages of all the original laws. Zen didn't try to study the remaining obelisks as they explained extensions of the original laws. For example, the obelisk next to Zen emitted strong sword intent and rumbling thunder. It obviously contained a law power of thunder and metal. Its application in martial arts was extreme thunder sword intent, which Rocher was practicing. Presumably one of the dragon lineage human master warriors had once mastered this sword intent, and recorded it here. Over the 3 days, Zen read 9 obelisks, which showed his potential in martial arts. His learning not only impressed Elder Wei but also made Zack jealous. After entering the genuine dragon world, most cultivators would stay in the forest of obelisks for tens or hundreds of months. Not everyone had an affinity with the laws, which meant that many people faced difficulties learning them. For example, cultivators, who used skills that caused thunder damage had to master the laws relating to thunder to improve their skills. But if they had low affinity for thunder, they would comprehend the relating laws very slowly. It would take them forever to study even one obelisk. Many cultivators who sat alongside the obelisk had been grappling with the laws for a while. And this was why Zen's learning speed shocked everyone. After another 3 days, he moved toward a new area, led by Elder Wei. The obelisks are the first assessment for the people who have entered. It is important for cultivators to understand the laws of the universe. This understanding is more crucial than the energy store or martial arts skills. Only the cultivators who have passed will move to the next training session. The next session will teach you how to improve your soul power, explained Elder Wei with patience. He smiled kindly at Zen. Soul power. Zen murmured thoughtfully and nodded. He hadn't received any systematic soul strength training yet. There was no such thing in the eastern region. Till now, Zen had forged his soul in the mysterious furnace and learned the skill of spiritual thorn to improve his use of soul power. Also, the dark devil phantom essence he assimilated had helped boost his soul strength. But still, there had been no systematic training. Therefore, it was necessary for him to participate in a targeted training. Although his soul power was stronger than most of his peers, Zen needed to learn the skills to improve it and use it. When they finally arrived at their destination, Zen saw a strange black ball floating in the sky. The black ball was unlike anything Zen had ever seen. It was about 200 feet in diameter. On its surface, strings of purple lightning swirled continually. As Zen studied it, he seemed to see a dark object wriggling inside. What is that? Questioned Zen as he felt a heavy spiritual pressure being released from the ball. Elder Wei answered softly, it is a prison that contains a dead owl beast. Its soul is searching for a way to escape. In the years that it has been trapped in the black ball, it has turned into an evil spirit. And not an ordinary one, but a fighting soul, a Jasper fighting soul. Fighting soul, Jasper fighting soul, Zen was puzzled. Chapter 429, Tormenting the Soul. Elder Wei just told Zen about the fighting soul realm. But it was the first time that Zen had heard it because it was not familiar in the eastern region. Nevertheless, it was what Elder Wei had expected because no one in the eastern region had owned one. The strongest cultivator in the eastern region was at the same level as Kenneth. Even Kenneth, who was the leader of Cloud Sect, did not own a fighting soul, let alone a more powerful Jasper fighting soul. It was no surprise for Elder Wei that Zen didn't know much about the fighting soul also because he was only at the consummation of nature level. Had he been at the internal elixir realm, he might have known about fighting soul. If it was any other disciples, Elder Wei would have sneered at that person's ignorance. But it wasn't any ordinary disciple. It was Zen. Elder Wei had acknowledged and respected Zen because of his excellent performance and talent. Elder Wei took the time in explaining it in detail. The souls of an ordinary human and some other species were naturally fragile, except for those whose soul was innately strong. When a fragile soul was damaged or injured, it would make the person weak for several days. A more serious injury would put a person into mental retardation. Once one's soul was broken into pieces, his physical body would instantly turn into dust. If one could cultivate his soul to reach a certain level of strength, not only could he use his soul directly in the battle, but he could even launch a soul battle. However, training a soul was not as easy as training the physical body. But the result of the hard training would worth it. One could reach the fighting soul level. That's interesting, but how can I get into the fighting soul level? Zen was intrigued with what Elder Wei had just told him. He had only dreamt of reaching the internal elixir realm. But now that he had known about the fighting soul level, he had shifted his focus on this far better cultivation level. Elder Wei felt an indescribable joy of superiority over Zen. Not only that he had interested him in the fighting soul topic, but now Zen would also need him as his mentor. Smiling, he said, to be frank, you certainly don't have an opportunity to own a fighting soul, let alone a Jasper fighting soul in the lower world. People from the lower world have naturally weak souls. Your soul can be compared with that of many cultivators at the illuminating soul realm. However, you still need more practice to get to the fighting soul level. Zen had always believed that his soul strength was already at the best level given that it was refined through the mysterious furnace in his mind. However, after hearing the assessment of Elder Wei, he realized that his soul was not yet strong enough. But instead of being annoyed and depressed, he became more motivated to improve his soul strength. Elder Wei, please tell me what to do, Zen asked respectfully. Elder Wei smiled at the respect that Zen had shown him. He felt more superior now, but he had to hide his excitement over it. He calmed himself and pointed at the big black ball and said, put your soul into it, and you will understand. Put my soul into it? Zen asked. He didn't understand what Elder Wei was saying. Even if he put his mind into it, he still couldn't understand what the action was pertaining to. He then said, you're kidding, aren't you? Zen was not clear about the strength of the Jasper fighting soul. However, he felt that he would not be able to resist the soul pressure that the black ball would release. With the current level of his soul, he wouldn't be able to fight the owl beast ghost head-on. He assessed that he would instantly be killed if he confronted it right now. Sensing the concern through Zen's eyes, Elder Wei comforted him. He said to Zen, "Don't worry. Our training is designed very well, and we won't let you die here. Look at all the other people who are practicing here." Elder Wei pointed to Zen, the other practitioners in the training field. Zen had seen that their souls had already entered the black ball while their bodies were either sitting or lying near the black ball. The elites from the lower world are also training in the black ball. It is a rare opportunity for them. Once you grasp it, you will surely benefit from it, Elder Wei added. When he saw that Zen had understood the concept of the training, he then proceeded to explain the rules of the black ball. After listening to Elder Wei's explanation, Zen's worry faded away. He nodded in understanding and went straight to the black ball. He sat down, crossed his legs, and started meditating. When he finally settled down, Zen released his soul into the black ball. The moment he opened his eyes, he found himself inside the black ball and he could see nothing but darkness. His soul suddenly felt intense stinging pain. He couldn't tell where the pain was coming from or what the feeling was. It felt like there were countless flying knives stabbing his soul. Sometimes, he felt like he was being roasted in a fire or freezing in cold. Nash. The pain was excruciating. He was trembling, his teeth grinding together in pain. Without a physical body, his soul was fragile. Even if his soul was stronger than other cultivators' souls, he was still unable to bear the pain. While he suffered great pain, Zen suddenly noticed a beam of pale yellow light. The pain clouded his mind and without thinking, he rushed towards the light. As he rushed towards the light, Zen felt less soul pressure and the pain had subsided gradually. His body felt like a burning log that was instantly covered by a block of snow. His throat felt like a dry desert that was splashed by cold water. When he came closer, the light gradually mended his soul. It was paradise. When he opened his eyes again, he saw the other cultivators, souls gathering around the small oil lamp warming themselves up. There were many little oil lamps like dots around the dark space. The soft light they emitted protected the souls of the cultivators from the powerful pressure. Aside from the little lamps and the cultivators around each, Zen noticed a huge owl beast ghost chained by lightning at the center of the space. Zen realized that terrible soul pressure was coming from the ghost's body. Some cultivators would move away from the little lamps from time to challenge themselves with the soul pressure from the owl beast ghost. They would stay outside the protected area until they couldn't bear the soul pressure anymore, and then they would return near the lamps to regenerate their souls. The soul training was quite similar to the first soul training Zen got from the mysterious furnace in his mind. During that time, his soul underwent alternate destroying and repairing. However, the pain was 100 times more intense compared to what he was experiencing now. Also, the furnace could heal the soul much faster than these lamps. Because of that training, Zen's soul became tougher. Other than his first soul training, the soul training in the black ball had many similarities to various cultivating methods. In this cultivation method, one's soul would be constantly beaten and sharpened, but as a result, the soul would gradually become more powerful. But in the lower world, there was no such little oil lamp to repair their souls. If their souls were damaged, they would eventually become idiots. But with these little oil lamps in the black ball, the soul training became easy. This opportunity was rare for a person at the consummation of nature level like Zen. So, it was natural for him to seize it. Without waiting until his soul had fully regenerated, Zen rushed out of the protection towards the terrible soul pressure. The instant he moved away from the little lamp, the soul pressure swept Zen away. The soul pressure was not getting any lighter in any way. One could only rely on this willpower to endure the pain. However, most people could not stand the soul pressure for more than 6 seconds. After that, they would immediately return to the protection area to regenerate their souls. Zen, on the other hand, stood firmly in his place outside the protected area. He challenged himself to endure the pressure a little longer. Soon, his teeth started to grind. Just a little longer, Zen told himself. 3 seconds. 6 seconds. 30 seconds. After half a minute, Zen's soul started to tear apart like a cotton-padded jacket being shred into pieces. Now, when Zen felt that he was about to lose consciousness, he moved back to the side of the small oil lamp. Once back into the protected area, he felt his soul began to regenerate. "Hey, newcomer, do you really need to push that hard?" A cultivator who sat beside the little oil lamp said with a smile on his face. These cultivators had been in the black ball longer than Zen. They had already experienced the brutality by the soul pressure and were very clear of their limit. They couldn't hold the pressure for more than 15 seconds. So, when they saw Zen tried to hold it for 30 seconds, they were stunned and felt jealous at the same time. The newcomer had easily outperformed them. Zen just smiled back at the cultivator and said nothing. He concentrated on regenerating his soul. Now, after his soul had been completely regenerated, he left the protected area once more. He did that repeatedly. After a few times of enduring the soul torment of the owl beast ghost, Zen could now endure the pain longer. At his first try, he could only hold for 30 seconds. As he repeatedly went in, his endurance had lengthened to 36, 60 until he could endure for 120 seconds. Soon after, Zen could endure the pain for at least 5 minutes. It was the longest time that a cultivator had endured the soul torment of the owl beast ghost. The other cultivators saw his improvement and were amazed by his speed. Chapter 430. May the stronger soul win. The soul pressure from the owl beast's ghost in the black sphere would cover the cultivators' souls. However, the soul pressure was not distributed evenly. A practitioner would suffer less soul pressure when they got to the edge of the black sphere. But as they moved towards the center of the sphere, the soul pressure would become more overwhelming. There were 6 circles of the sphere. Each circle had a different level of soul pressure, and this pressure would exponentially increase as the circle became closer to the center of the sphere. In other words, the closer the circle to the center of the sphere, the strongest the soul pressure would become. Zen, like most of the cultivators in the black sphere, was now at the outermost circle. After repeatedly practicing at the outermost circle for half of the day, Zen could feel his soul becoming stronger. He was now ready for the second circle. When he had finally regenerated his soul once more, he went straight for the second circle. The cultivators regenerating their soul around the oil lamp were stunned to see Zen's next action. Some of them had been in the black sphere for months now but still didn't dare to advance to the center. But Zen, who had only practiced for half a day, was already going for the second circle. The speed of Zen's progress could be attributed to his current soul strength before he had entered the black sphere. It could be noted that his soul was tougher than an average practitioner. Also, he didn't waste any time. He could have opted to stay within the protected area longer, but he chose not to. Once he felt that his soul had regenerated, he would immediately go back to the outermost sphere. The time he spent strengthening himself in the outermost sphere was longer than the time he spent regenerating his soul. On the other hand, most cultivators would spend most of their time resting near the little lamps than struggling on the outermost circle. Their souls could not stay in the outermost circle longer because of the pain and agony. It would take them 2 to 3 hours to complete a run, while Zen could complete dozens of runs in the same period. As Zen was about to enter the second circle, 2 pairs of men and women approached the edge of the black sphere. Actually, Zen knew these 4 people. They were the group he had met in the area of the obelisks. One of them was called Christopher. Christopher was considered one of the best among those ascended from the lower world. With his remarkable talent, he was able to work his way from the lower world to the upper world. In the process of understanding the laws, he had climbed both the obelisks of the space law and the fire law. Given this accomplishment, Zach considered Christopher as an elite disciple who deserved the highest commendation. However, all of those had changed when Zen arrived. He had gained the favor of Zach when he was able to comprehend the original laws, except the time law, in just 3 days after he went through the baptism by laws. It was the fastest comprehension ever recorded in history. With Zen's existence, Christopher's confidence was trampled. His light had become a firefly compared with Zen's sun. Since then, Christopher had held a grudge against Zen. Christopher had never felt this humiliated in his life before. He grew up being constantly praised for his wit and talent. Thus, he developed an arrogant and self-righteous character. So, after Zen stole his thunder, he blamed Zen instead of reflecting on his own shortcomings. Christopher would probably have taken his revenge on Zen immediately if he hadn't just arrived in the place. If he had arrived earlier enough, he could have familiarized himself with the place and strengthened his soul ahead of Zen. This way, he could have stricken Zen as soon as he met him. However, that was not the situation. As soon as he walked into the black sphere, the surging soul pressure of the owl beast's ghost enveloped him. So this is the soul pressure, huh? A cyan light suddenly appeared on the surface of Christopher's soul and completely covered him. The soul pressure of the owl beast's ghost had hit the cyan light continuously, but it remained stable and blocked all the soul pressure. The 3 cultivators who had come in with Christopher were also covered with a layer of cyan light. The cyan light acted as their protective shield from the tormenting soul pressure from the owl beast's ghost. Christopher was associated with a powerful force that excelled in practicing soul and had secret methods for it. As the core of the force, Christopher took pride in his great achievements in soul cultivating. It was the feather on his hat. He had never met anyone who had a stronger soul than his. When the other cultivators sitting around the oil lamps saw the entrance of Christopher and his group, they were stunned. These cultivators' souls were not strong enough to enter the second circle even though they had been here for a long time. But the four who just came in and hadn't practiced yet were leisurely walking towards the next circle. When Christopher entered the second circle, he felt that the power of the soul pressure had doubled. He was surprised but adjusted very quickly. Despite the stronger soul pressure, the cyan light that covered him remained stable and firm. The other three, on the other hand, were unable to resist the overbearing soul pressure. The cyan light around them began to shake, and cracks started to appear on its surface. But before the cyan light finally broke open, the three walked up to the nearest little oil lamp in the second circle. Christopher looked at his companions with a mocking smile on his face. He was somehow glad to see his companions failing to bear this circle's soul pressure. That felt like a confirmation that he was stronger than the three of them. Christopher then headed straight for the third circle. On his way to the third circle, he noticed Zen not far away from where he was. Great, I can finally catch this guy. Christopher's eyes gleamed almost wickedly, resentment seethed within him. Christopher had many chances in the upper world to take revenge on Zen. However, he didn't want to offend the dragon lineage human. Besides, he was in the upper world where no one could save him if he got into trouble. Though his family was considered one of the elite clans, they had no influence in the upper world. In the upper world, they could be compared with small ants in a big world. But in the Black Sphere, no one would care. After all, the practitioners in the Black Sphere were all from the lower world that no one would pay attention to. With his mind made up and hatred in his heart, Christopher hastily strode over to Zen. Meanwhile, Zen was concentrating on honing his soul while he kept up with the soul pressure. He had no idea that Christopher was coming. As Zen moved forward in the second circle, he became a little closer to the center where the owl beast's ghost was located. Although the pressure on the second circle was just twice the one on the first circle, it was still too much for Zen. In the first circle, Zen was able to refine his soul to the point where he could move without the help of the little oil lamp. But as soon as he stepped into the second circle, he was back to the starting point. He could only endure the soul pressure for about a minute and then had to go back to the oil lamp to regenerate. While Zen was regenerating near the oil lamp, he saw a cyan flash coming right behind him. A soul was attacking him. Zen wasn't expecting anyone to fight him in this place. He didn't like the surprise attack while he was cultivating his soul. But without thinking, he quickly sidled away from the attacker at the crucial moment. Then, he immediately approached the nearest oil lamp to regenerate while keeping an eye on the attacker. It's him. Anger showed on Zen's face as he recognized his attacker. He asked in a cold tone, "Hey, jerk. Why are you attacking me?" Christopher shrugged his shoulders and cracked a ferocious grin. "I just don't like your face, that's all." Zen closed his eyes for a moment. As soon as the little oil lamp completely restored his soul, he opened his eyes again and fixed them on Christopher. "I know a lot of people who don't like me. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. But I must warn you, they all ended badly. So, are you sure you want to fight me?" he stated with a cold smile. "Cut the garbage," Christopher sneered. Then his hands began to reshape and turned into knives. Zen's eyes narrowed as he watched Christopher's hands turned into knives. It wasn't a surprise at all. After mastering the spiritual thorn, Zen understood that a man could turn part of his soul into knives. As soon as Christopher's hands transformed, he attacked Zen using his hands or knives without any hesitation. Zen certainly wasn't going to stand there and be slaughtered. He left the oil lamp and ran along the second circle towards the next oil lamp. It was annoying to be interrupted when one was concentrating on practicing. Unfortunately, Zen met a mindless, arrogant and unreasonable guy. "Christopher's fighting the guy again." Quote, "Of course he will fight that guy. You know Christopher, he has never been insulted in his life. So those who dare to humiliate him would surely suffer his wrath. It's his fault." He relentlessly took the spotlight from Christopher. Now, he's meeting his doom. The three practitioners who had come with Christopher stood by the oil lamp and whispered to each other. Without Christopher's help, they wouldn't be able to come to the upper world through the Dragon Soar Arena. So, it was just fitting that they would take his side. The other practitioners in the Black Sphere watched as the two men fight. They momentarily forgot the reason they were here as they watched in amazement. As it was already very painful to practice under the intense soul pressure, these practitioners were just grateful not to be trashed into idiots. The soul pressure was taking all their energies that they had to come to these little oil lamps to regenerate. However, it was incredible to see that some people could have that energy to even fight in this tormenting environment. It was ridiculous but surprising at the same time. However, these practitioners started to worry about Zen as he was being chased by Christopher. It was dangerous to fight under the soul pressure. If Zen was to be killed by Christopher, he could become an idiot under the tormenting soul pressure. The Black Sphere had turned some great cultivators into idiots. Because of their senseless arrogance, some cultivators had pushed themselves too far to tolerate the soul pressure. Their souls were eventually damaged that they didn't have the energy to come back to the oil lamps. Hence, soul pressure crashed their souls and turned them into idiots. That guy is obviously running out of luck. If I were him, I would take back my soul and stop practicing for a while. You're right, he'll be fine if he leaves the Black Sphere. But why does he push himself too much? The cultivators talked while their backs were on the oil lamps. The fight between Zen and Christopher was a good excuse to stay near the oil lamps a little longer. They watched the fight as if it was a leisure play. Chapter 431, All in Vain. It didn't cross Zen's mind that another soul would try to kill him while his soul was in the black ball. Now, Zen had to deal with the owl beast's evil spirit which was suppressing him while simultaneously dodging Christopher's attacks. You can go to perdition, shouted Christopher passionately as he lunged at Zen, swinging his sword. As agile as Zen was, he was able to weave and dodge around the place, not only narrowly escaping the strikes as Christopher came at him, but Zen also healed his soul in between attacks by quickly getting closer to the oil lamps. The second circle of the black globe was ring-shaped. Christopher chased Zen in the ring, and after several rounds, Zen acclimated to the ring and suppressed the forces. A few times, he noted, he could even skip an oil lamp and wait to mend his soul at the next oil lamp. When Christopher failed to catch Zen, he became infuriated. He raised his blades that were transformed from his two hands as he growled, "Spiritual fighting skill. Ghost fighting blades. Let's see how you escape now." Christopher was a refiner at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm, and had used this precise technique before to slay the soul of a master in the internal elixir realm. Burning green sparks shot from the two blades and Christopher's shadow snuck up on Zen. While he lunged forward, he swung his blades at Zen's soul. He came towards Zen at lightning speed, making it impossible for Zen to dodge the blades. If they struck him, they would slice his soul to pieces. Oh, spiritual fighting skill, I can do that. Since Zen couldn't shake the incoming assault off, Zen focused, changing a portion of his soul into a sharp thorn and sending it at Christopher. Spiritual thorn. Strictly speaking, changing a soul into a thorn was similar to turning a soul into a blade, which was a skill employed by Christopher, and it was not considered a spiritual fighting skill. It was used to transform part of his soul to attack. But, since Zen had spent his time evading Christopher's attacks steadily, he hadn't taken the time to employ his spiritual thorn, which left Christopher with the impression that Zen was a coward, unable to fight and unwilling to do more than run. From the moment he employed the spiritual fighting skill which he took great pride in, Christopher was determined to destroy Zen's soul and focused his full attention on maintaining his blades. Suddenly, Zen countered Christopher's attack with a violent onslaught which left Christopher no time to dodge the sharp soul thorn headed at him. It took only a second from the moment he saw the soul thorn for it to pierce Christopher's soul. Ah! Christopher howled in pain as his blades crumbled and turned to dust. He had held off using his spiritual fighting skill until he thought the time was perfect, but only to find it to be a complete failure. Instead of continuing his assault, Zen put some distance between himself and Christopher as he dashed over to the next oil lamp to mend his soul. Christopher's soul had a severe wound, leaving him no choice but to locate another small oil lamp to heal himself. He glared angrily at Zen like a large cat hunting prey. With his back to Christopher, the corners of Zen's mouth turned upwards in a slight grin. The majority of warriors in the black globe weren't practicing anymore. They squatted under oil lamps watching the show. As Christopher utilized his spiritual fighting skill, the warriors discussed the fight. Basically, they thought Zen would lose. And the only way Zen would escape was to withdraw his soul from the black globe and return it into his body. They didn't expect Zen to conjure a sharp thorn out of the blue. His move not only saved his life, but also knocked his opponent out, turning the tide of the fight. That guy was so calm, and from the start all he did was run. It appears he was saving a trump card for the time after his opponent used spiritual fighting skill. How smart. He has the foresight to think ahead and surprise his opponent. He made his opponent look like a fool. Maybe that's a good thing. He can use this chance to take on the challenge and temper his soul. Oh, no, is the suppression from all beast evil spirit not enough for him? It's unimaginable that he has another one chasing him. Although the warriors didn't think Zen could devise strategy, they were agreed that Zen was really very special. Who knew? Zen might intentionally stir up a fight and temper his soul. After Zen's attack, there was an unbearable amount of pain in the huge hole torn into Christopher's soul. He managed to heal traumatic wound under the oil lamplight, but the fact that he suffered the gash at the hands of such a brat was depressing. Christopher was most proud of his soul. While he was in the lower world, he had slain the soul of an internal elixir realm warrior with his spiritual fighting skill. What extraordinary glory! His tale had shocked all the citizens of the continent he hailed from. Now, using the same spiritual fighting skill, he failed, and worse, a nature creature had hurt him. He turned his soul into a thorn. What the heck? That was complete garbage. True, in the eastern region, the spiritual thorn was seen as a mysterious refinement method of Tier 4. However, the reason it was a Tier 4 cultivation method was purely because it concerned the soul. To Christopher, it was a controversial method kept outside mainstream refinement techniques. After all, the technique involved a single thorn. It might work the first time, but, the second time someone used the skill, his opponent would have learned and been fully prepared. Christopher was exasperated, and he ignored something about the spiritual thorn's judgment. When a warrior fought another, whether he lost or won, was momentary. The spiritual thorn was meant to be a surprise attack. The technique was never created to be used a second time during an attack. From this perspective, the spiritual thorn could take an opponent by surprise and damage his soul greatly. In fact, it was very practical at the soul level. It was only Christopher who thought in such a limited manner. Mostly because he was the one who was beaten. "I'll chop you up, Zen," seethed Christopher through gritted teeth. His body flashed green and he dashed at Zen again. This time, Christopher was ready. He assumed that Zen's spiritual thorn would be useless against him and he thought, "Let me see how you escape my spiritual fighting skill this time." While Christopher was healing his soul, Zen was seizing the moment to practice. When he saw Christopher heading his way, he ran along the second ring. Christopher was in hot pursuit of Zen. His strength returned as if he had taken a powerful pill. He didn't give Zen any respite, and within a short time, he caught up to Zen. "Keep running, I'll see how you can escape." Ghost fighting blades. As Christopher flailed his two blades, his eyes firmly focused on Zen, on guard against Zen's soul thorn attack. But, as Christopher's ghost fighting blades was about to slice into him, Zen blinked and smiled smugly at Christopher. In a flash, Zen vanished. Where did he go? Christopher had been excited and thinking about how he would take Zen's life soon. However, his target suddenly left his sight. He was dumbfounded and for a moment, he didn't react. "Look out, Christopher." He pulled back his soul. His soul left the black globe and returned to his body already. Shouted the two female warriors who were near Christopher. "Dang it, I see now." Christopher howled furiously. He wasn't an idiot, so, how possibly he hadn't known? In the next instant, Christopher pulled his soul back from the black globe, taking it back into himself. The moment Christopher's soul was in his body, his eyes flew open, and he saw Zen, not too far away, stretching his arms and neck. He was pissed. Taking a large big stride forward, Christopher rushed toward Zen as he screamed, You can go to perdition." He balled his hand into a tight fist, ready for a fight. Facing a master at the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm, Zen was calm and smiled gently. "Are you sure you want to fight me, here?" Christopher's face fell as he glanced around and noticed the armed guards. He paused, holding his fist midair. Since arriving, Christopher was still unable to see the armed guards and elders' strengths, and he found that very odd. But, needless to say, the level of strength that the upper world masters possessed was beyond imagination. It definitely wasn't a good idea to fight in front of the armed guards. "Hey, what are you doing? No one's allowed to fight here. Anyone violating this rule will be sentenced to 1,000 years in prison," chided an armed guard. Christopher loosened his fist in resignation. He pointed at Zen and said, "Sooner or later, I'll get you. If you don't want that, you had better stay out of the dark globe forever." Afterward, Christopher took a step back. In the face of idle threats, Zen smiled, and flexed his muscles. Then he jumped back into the black globe. The minute he was back in the first ring of the black globe, Christopher jumped in from the other side. Zen quickly went to the second ring and according to his plan, began practicing. However, Christopher was persistent, and was set on defeating Zen. As long as Zen was in the second ring, Christopher would stalk him. Zen seized every chance to practice. He planned that if he found he wasn't able to dodge Christopher's spiritual fighting skill, he would pull his soul out of the black globe. Christopher was obstinate beyond reason. Even knowing it was in vain, he went continuously after Zen. They played mouse and cat many times. When Zen's soul finally was able to withstand the suppression of the second ring, he went to the third ring without hesitating. Chapter 432, Cyan Dragon's Request. The mighty oppressing force subjugating the soul in the third ring was twice as powerful as that in the second ring, and thus fourfold as that in the first ring. The moment Zen crossed the threshold of the third ring, the unseen force almost knocked him off and dominated his body at once. He gritted his teeth as he felt the push and pull against his soul, which was being tightly pressed and squeezed into an irregular shape like a piece of rag. The intensity rendered him barely breathing, but he didn't resist. As a small smile was seen slowly forming on his lips, he embraced the massive force in total surrender. Surely, he was a really bright spark. He silently thanked himself up for being wise enough to get well prepared. He had anticipated that this was bound to happen anyway. So the moment he gained access to the third ring, he braced himself hard and dashed straight towards the tiny oil lamp emitting a soft light in the center. Christopher never slowed down a bit in chasing his target. As a strong and determined opponent, he followed Zen closely at his heels, no matter how fast the latter could run. And there wasn't much difference in time which they took to burst into the third ring. In contrast to Zen's calmness, Christopher wore startled expression on the sudden impact of the strengthened force emanating from the third ring. The strong cyan light shield surrounding Christopher's soul was comparably weaker against the mighty oppressing force in the third ring. The layer of cyan light, which wrapped his soul perfectly to protect it from any harm, cracked unexpectedly. His soul was characteristically more powerful than Zen's soul, but having it exposed directly unprotected now against the mighty oppressing force that was quadrupled in strength, he felt he was close to the limit of his endurance. He grimaced as he focused his gaze towards the nearest oil lamp. Under the massive oppressive force, he gathered an ounce of his strength and advanced towards the direction of the soft light strenuously with clenched teeth, determined to reach it. The area of the domain was mapped out of having the outer rings larger than the inner rings. Therefore, the third ring was much shorter than the first ring in terms of circumference. Since there were 32 oil lamps in the first ring, the number of oil lamps would be lessened gradually as the ring turned smaller and smaller. As a result, there were only 16 oil lamps in the second ring, 8 oil lamps in the third ring, 4 oil lamps in the fourth ring, and 2 oil lamps in the fifth ring. As for the sixth ring that was the nearest to the owl beast devil spirit, there was only 1 oil lamp in it. Gearing himself up, Christopher watched Zen closely. However, his cyan light was becoming weaker and weaker under the attack of the mighty oppressing force, and its power was slowly dwindling away. When his shielding light had finally lost its ability to protect his soul, he was as vulnerable as Zen. They were on an equal footing now. Zen dashed for the next oil lamp at the same time when Christopher rushed out of the protection range of his oil lamp. Both of them had to recover their soul energy with the power of the oil lamp. In this way, they moved forward strenuously, with Zen always ahead of Christopher to occupy the next oil lamp. Each oil lamp had become their rest station to replenish their energy for the next one. Christopher felt the urge of annoyance as he was always one lamp behind of Zen. And in spite of all his effort, he was unable to narrow the distance. Admiration filled the hearts of all those warriors who were watching the fierce contest under the oil lamps. They respected Christopher for his perseverance in following Zen and his ambition to overtake him. But what stunned them the most was Zen's surprisingly rapid progress. No one among the spectators had expected that Zen would enter into the third ring at so fast a speed. The soul energy would be promoted fast and dramatically if the soul could practice in the black ball. Once it reached the sixth ring, it would enter the fighting soul realm. The word, fighting, in the fighting soul realm indicated that it was a realm in which the soul could directly participate in the fight. The soul would have the extreme fighting ability once it passed into the fighting soul realm. Instead of being weak and in need of some protective measures, it would grow much stronger, and thus could be filled in as a weapon to kill enemies. The most ordinary leaves and flowers would be much stronger than some fairy weapons and even some sacred weapons, once they were filled with the fighting soul in the fighting soul realm. That was the most powerful ability of the fighting soul in the fighting soul realm. All the warriors who were able to practice in the Black Ball would hope for their souls to enter into the fighting soul realm. But to reach the fighting soul realm, it was by no means an easy job. The forging of soul, however, had nothing to do with a forger's accumulation of energies. So it was natural that some practitioners who had entered the later stage of the internal elixir realm, and even some capable practitioners in the virtual tribulation realm, were unable to have any opportunities to knock the door of the fighting soul realm. Christopher seems to have lost his mind. There's no way for him to overtake his opponent. It's useless. Zen is ahead of him all the time. Christopher is just wasting his energy. What he could do to Zen if he really surpasses him. Hey, do you know who Christopher is in the lower world? A talent, a big name. He has no choice. He must win his face back since he was defeated by that guy. It's understandable why he is unwilling to lose again in this contest. The three companions of Christopher continued to discuss, feeling somewhat ridiculous for Christopher's stubbornness in catching up with Zen. He had never relaxed a single moment in chasing Zen, as he had a strong desire of overtaking Zen and killing him. He didn't know, however, that after so many circles of run and chase, Zen's soul was getting stronger and stronger. At the very beginning, when they came into the third ring, Zen felt the pain extremely unbearable under the mighty oppressing force once he left the protection range of an oil lamp. So he must move swiftly to every oil lamp ahead basically for protection. But then, as he was able to stop at every other oil lamp, and then every other 2 oil lamps, the distance between them widened. At last, Zen had finished his first circle in the third ring and was just closely behind Christopher. It was only then Christopher came to realize what the distance there was between him and Zen. Upset and disgraced by the fact, Christopher turned around all of a sudden to pursue Zen in the other direction. The funny scene provoked a loud fit of laughter and howling cheers among all the warriors watching. Christopher seemed stupidly confused at Zen's tricks. The two of them had played the game of run and chase in the third ring for nearly 4 hours. At last, Zen seemed to have had enough fun in this game. He flashed a brilliant smile at his opponent before he casually slipped into the fourth ring. In this circle, the oppressing force was 8-fold as powerful as that in the first ring. With Zen infiltrating the fourth ring, Christopher was burning with anger and eagerness to follow him as well. He was determined not to lose his face at this round. So he fixed his mind solely on how he would exact revenge with Zen. Only then would he give up. At the spectator side, all of his 3 companions were observing him keenly. They started to feel uneasy as they stared at him, giving Zen a black look. Anticipating his intention, they yelled at him. He needed to be stopped. Christopher, what are you doing? There's no way for you to bear the oppressive force in the fourth ring. Do you understand? Christopher had suffered exhaustion under the attack of the mighty oppressing force in the third ring. His cyan light, a powerful shielding weapon that he was so proud of, had become useless in front of the 4-fold oppressing force. How could he deal with the massive force in the fourth ring that was 8-fold as powerful? Approaching the tiny oil lamp for Zen in the fourth ring was as easy as falling off a log, so Christopher followed suit, totally ignoring the warnings from his companions. Never did he expect that a disaster was waiting for him as his soul began to collapse swiftly soon after he had set his feet into the next ring. Audible gasps were heard from his companions as their faces turned ashen. They became dazed as they stood motionless, frightened at such a catastrophic accident. Panic gripped them, but they were unable to do anything. They had no abilities to enter into the third ring. How could they reach the fourth ring to save Christopher? They were left with no choice but to helplessly watch Christopher's soul shatter into fragments in front of them. The sharp, throbbing pain from his soul finally awakened him. His obsession with defeating Zen and killing him had landed him in a blinded irrational state. He was so furious at his ruin and at Zen himself. So he had sworn to defeat him no matter what it took him, even at the cost of his life. The catastrophic incident brought back his rationality. Now, it registered to him that the fourth ring was indeed a cruel realm, with a very slim chance of survival. More so, if he would be unsuccessful in his attempt to reach any oil lamps or he failed to return to the third ring, his soul would definitely shatter into pieces. Then his body would become nothing but a soulless shell. At this critical moment, he seemed to be at a crossroads. He remained kneeling on the ground while he made up his mind. Contemplating that his decision would have a long-term consequence, he immediately engulfed himself into silence. Soon after, his body went rigid as he summoned his inner core to use his family's secret method to burn his soul. With a crackling noise, a light flame was ignited on the surface of his soul. That was the flame of the soul. This method of burning the soul would bring much severe damage than the burning of the blood in the body. But he had no better choice. He had to do this to survive. By burning the soul, the flame of the soul could produce massive energy to resist the overwhelming power from the intensified oppressing force in the fourth ring. Taking this opportunity, Christopher retreated to the third ring, where he fixed his soul with the help of the healing power of the oil lamp. Although the oil lamp could heal the damaged part of Christopher's soul, the burned part of it could never be recovered. Therefore, this kind of self-salvage through the burning of the soul would bring substantial damage to him forever. His face turned pale after such a disastrous accident. Though he was deathly frightened, he quickly masked his fear. He continued to gaze at Zen. The oil lamp that Zen occupied was not far away. But the power of the intensified oppressing force was far beyond his ability to bear. If he had kept going on regardless of all the risks, his soul would collapse before he could reach the oil lamp. A bad sense of frustration surged in Christopher's heart when he looked at Zen's smiling face. He had already been defeated by Zen when they competed with each other in comprehending the law power. As a capable practitioner in the field of the forging of soul, he was confident that Zen was by no means his match. But he lost again, in such a demeaning way in the field he was capable of and in everyone's presence. The sharp gap between him and Zen disgraced him to the extreme. And nobody could ever understand how frustrated he was at this shameful moment. Christopher let out a sigh in helplessness. That was the only thing he could do at the most humiliating moment in his entire existence. Zen paid no attention to his opponent after he had entered the fourth ring. He focused on his sole purpose, to forge his soul. The fourth ring was quite close to the owl beast devil spirit. Its body looked like a bear, but the length of its face closely resembled that of a dragon. And a sharp beak was protruding replacing its mouth. The fierce-looking ugly creature fixed its gigantic eyes on Zen, watching his every move. Suddenly, the owl beast devil spirit opened its huge beak to let out a strange wild scream. Gah! With that loud piercing cry, a group of black smaller devil spirits rushed into the fourth ring in quick succession. Those devil spirits were not too big and seemed like a miniature version of the owl beast devil spirit that had let out the scream. They ran and wandered about in every corner of the fourth ring. What? Exclaimed Zen with a frown at this unexpected sight. The fourth ring was strategically situated near the owl beast devil spirit. On top of that, its mighty oppressing force had grown to 8 times as powerful as that in the first ring. He had conquered this great challenge by channeling his utmost attention and energy in dealing with this massive force. What could he do now with so many devil spirits swirling? The devil spirits dared not approach nearer him because they were fearful of the oil lamp illuminating the sphere, making Zen safe as long as he was within its protection range. But whenever he tried to walk out of it, the devil spirits would rush over him like overwhelming water. Zen shook his head, realizing he was in a difficult situation now. Unpredictably, the cyan dragon, who had kept in silence all the while, spoke in Zen's mind. The cyan dragon had sunk into silence the moment when Zen began to practice. Zen didn't think his sudden utterance would be a good omen. Zen, I'll devour that owl beast devil spirit after you run into the 6th ring, the cyan dragon said unexpectedly. Eat that owl beast ghost. Zen exclaimed with a doubtful expression splattered in his face, as the cyan dragon's words had startled him. The owl beast devil spirit possessed a far-fetched and unimaginable power. It was already hard to burst into the fighting soul realm, but it would be harder to cope with the owl beast devil spirit which was in a realm higher than the fighting soul realm in power. How is it possible? Zen prompted. Chapter 433, A Second Genuine Dragon. The cyan dragon laughed and said, the owl beast devil spirit has been tied by the soul-nurturing thunderlock and has become extremely weak. It is almost as weak as me. What you need to do is merely break the soul-nurturing thunderlock. I will deal with the rest. Zen listened carefully but doubt made his expression turn bitter soon. How can you do that for me? If you swallow the owl beast devil spirit, how will I explain its disappearance to the others? This owl beast devil spirit had the Jasper fighting soul and wasn't easy to capture. If Zen swallowed it in front of so many warriors, he would have no way to explain it. Don't care about them. You can pretend to be insane. You can do whatever you want as long as you help me swallow the spirit. Needless to say, it will be of great benefit to you as well, the dragon said convincingly with a playful chuckle. Zen's heart tightened at the dragon's words. With the vast knowledge the dragon had, he spoke of the spirit so highly. Zen had no reason to think otherwise. This spirit seemed to be extremely skilled and powerful. How can it be any good to me? Please tell me that first. Zen asked back hurriedly, starting to give away his fear. I plan to use a part of the owl beast devil spirit to nurture myself, and some other part to wake my 7th elder brother. The rest of it can be used to build a soul seed for you, the cyan dragon replied with confidence. It seemed like he had all things planned in his head. To wake your 7th elder brother? Zen repeated the cyan dragon's words in confusion. First of all, he was surprised to hear that the cyan dragon had a brother, let alone a 7th one. Zen tried to recall the time when he first came to know the cyan dragon. In Zen's soul sea, there was a total of 9 genuine dragons. At the very beginning, all of them were like statues, completely lifeless. As Zen started to use heavenly essence in great amounts and swallowed the flood dragon bone spear, one of them gained consciousness and recovered. No other dragons were affected. Even now the other 8 dragons stood like statues around the giant furnace, frozen mid-action, as if the breath of life was taken away from them abruptly. The cyan dragon who spoke in Zen's head, too, had recovered very, very slowly. Zen presumed the 7th elder brother who the dragon had mentioned was one of those 8 dragons around the furnace, but he had no way of knowing which one of them it was. The cyan dragon was back into the genuine dragon world now, but couldn't show himself for some reasons. Once Zen finished his training and returned to the lower world, he would barely get the opportunity to meet a powerful soul like the owl beast devil spirit. Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to defeat it easily. This was why the cyan dragon asked Zen to use this opportunity wisely. My 7th elder brother is very good at practicing bodies. And your body has become a spiritual weapon with the help of the furnace. If your body keeps improving, it will grow into a fairy weapon. After you became a nature creature, the warmth produced by your body while practicing it could only nurture your own energy center. That wasn't very helpful to you. It's a pity you cannot continue improving body. The cyan dragon explained calmly. But truth was that he was only feigning this calmness. Actually, the dragon was thinking about how Zen's body was so special and there was no other like it anywhere else in the world. If Zen kept practicing his body like this, the dragon couldn't even imagine the things he'd be able to accomplish in the future. The very thought excited the dragon, but he didn't tell anything about it to Zen. Improve my body? Zen asked, bobbing his head from side to side. He had thought about practicing his body before. But fact was, most warriors in the eastern region and the central region did not practice their bodies, but cultivated their life vitality instead. The method of cultivation of a body refiner was completely different. The warriors who practiced their bodies needed to cultivate themselves with a kind of forceful energy. Compared to life vitality, forceful energy burst out from the body quicker, fiercer and more directly. The only problem was that cultivating both the body and the life vitality was very difficult, and there were only a few people out of the entire human population who had even tried doing that. After a moment of silence, Zen's eyes shone brightly. I have made great progress already, yet I am not powerful enough. He thought, if I attempt to fight against Eddie, the evil East Lord, I'd be killed in the blink of an eye. His soul quivered as he thought about being weak in the face of adversity. A sort of rush filled him up. Then he ran to the small owl beast ghosts without even asking the dragon what a soul seed was. Let me kill them all, Zen told himself in his mind. He had no practice in the fighting skill of the soul, but the spiritual thorn was a good weapon to kill the small ghosts. There were a lot of these small ones, but none of them was as powerful as Zen thought they were. Zen killed one owl beast ghost after the other, and returned to the area lit with the little oil lamp. He repeated this process several times, and each cycle only made his soul stronger. Many warriors gazed at Zen in the inner circle with jealousy, which soon turned to depression. Compared with Zen, the speed at which they were cultivating was so low that they didn't know how long they would take before getting into the inner circle. They were eager to step into the fighting soul level. They watched as Zen kept moving, fighting his way through one circle to the other. Before long, he stepped into the 4th circle. The warriors around had no choice but to accept that Zen was far more talented than them. Some of them could not even be compared with him. After entering the 4th circle, his soul grew slower. Still, he fought for 2 whole days before returning from the black ball. After a whole day's rest, he went back to the black ball and continued his cultivation. It took him 3 whole days to cross the 4th circle and finally enter the 5th circle. He needed to enter the 6th circle for the cyan dragon to put his plan in action. Zen also understood clearly that even for the cyan dragon, it was a difficult task to swallow the owl beast's evil spirit, since the dragon, too, was currently weak, even though he talked as if this was a piece of cake. Still, the result they would get post-fighting the evil spirit surpassed the efforts they needed to put in. While Zen cultivated himself day and night, Zhao Zhao decided to send out a message to someone. He went to the transmission platform in the huge city and put a jade pendant into it, which carried his message. The genuine dragon world was a world different from the one where Zen had stayed. Its magnanimity was beyond everyone's imagination. Even the dragon lineage human area was only one out of its 10,000 parts. The message jade pendant needed to fly about 300 billion trillion miles before arriving at the Dragon Blaze Hall, which was where Zack came from. Sending this message cost him a lot. If it wasn't for Zen, he would never have done it. Recently, Zack had been going through numerous books to understand the things around him more deeply. He found that the last time the baptism by laws had occurred was 8,400 years ago to a person with the family name of Meng, who was now the head of the Green Dragon Palace. And now, it had occurred to no one else but this young boy from the lower world. It did not mean Zen could become the head of some dragon palace after the baptism. A warrior only grew into someone with power under the influence of factors like luck, cultivation, epiphany and fate. Yet, the baptism had at least guaranteed the fact that Zen had the opportunity. Dragon Blaze Hall would never want to miss out on the chance of enrolling such a talent. What Zack did not know was that merely 6 hours before him, Elder Wei had also sent a similar message. His message was already flying to the Dragon Abyss Palace, which was 250 billion trillion miles away. Elder Wei had the advantage of old age. He was a highly experienced and thoughtful individual. He also knew Zack wasn't someone who gave up easily, so he took his actions first and invited the person of a high position in the Dragon Abyss Palace to handle this matter. Because he had sent them the message, they wouldn't blame Wei even if they somehow didn't succeed in attracting Zen to join them. If the official from the Dragon Abyss Palace lost to the Dragon Blaze Hall, Elder Wei would still be spared of the blame. While both Wei and Zack waited for the effect of their reinforcements, Zen inched closer and closer to the Owl Beast evil spirit. If one had to understand how difficult it was to break through the fighting soul level, they could look at the dragon lineage humans who had flown to the genuine dragon world. Most of them were still in the first circle and a small part of them in the second circle. Barely any had entered the third one. The fourth circle was completely devoid of warriors, and then there was Zen, fighting all alone in the fifth. Quack. The owl beast at the center of the black ball felt something unusual, as if it was being approached by a very powerful soul. Only, it was hidden inside Zen's body. When Zen stepped into the fifth circle, it started to give out loud howls. But the soul-nurturing thunderlock had restrained it tightly, and it had no other way to fight against Zen except to exert a great pull and give off his soul power pressure. No other warriors in the black ball could face the spirit. Some of them couldn't even walk in a straight line at times when the owl beast radiated its soul power. Crackle. As soon as Zen stepped out of the little oil lamp's glow, his soul cracked a bit due to the constant soul power pressure. But his soul had become very powerful due to practicing for days on end. This crack was merely on the surface level. Before, his soul could have been pierced by another's soul power pressure easily, but not now. The fifth circle took the longest time to be crossed. It took Zen 13 days to adapt himself to the high soul power pressure. After its constant subjection, his soul had grown to be stronger than ever. At this point, even if Christopher inflicted a cut on his soul, it wouldn't make a difference. At that moment, Zen prepared himself standing at the edge of the fifth circle, and asked the Cyan Dragon, "Are you ready? I can step into the sixth circle if you are." The Cyan Dragon answered in all earnestness, "Yes, I am. Be cautious when you enter. When I break the soul-nurturing thunderlock, it will lead to a higher soul pressure." Zen was merely a soul without a body now, so he could take a deep breath to relax himself. He stood with back arched down, squinting his eyes and carefully looking at the humongous owl beast evil spirit. He counted to 3 in his mind and rushed into the sixth circle. The other warriors were merely onlookers now, thinking Zen was determined to break through the fighting soul level. They had no way of knowing he had just charged at the owl beast evil spirit itself. Precisely at that moment, the huge transmission array located at the center of the city lit up. A man in a fur coat appeared out of it, with a flame burning in his pupils. Stepping out of the array, he looked all around him with a calm expression. He was no one but the second leader of the Dragon Blaze Hall. Zack got alerted immediately. He had been anxiously waiting for him. Presently, he walked over to him and greeted him excitedly. "Mr. Nian, how nice to see you here. I have been waiting for you here for too long." Chapter 434. The Head of the Dragon Abyss Palace. Alan Yen, the vice leader of the Dragon Blaze Hall, was a person of great power. His rank was next to the head and his competence was beyond everyone's imagination. An organization as powerful as Dragon Blaze Hall had arranged for a vice head to greet Zen, so it was obvious that it took Zen seriously. Zack too was very excited. If he could get Zen to join Dragon Blaze Hall, it would be a great achievement for him. So, where is this young man who withstood the baptism by laws? Alan asked Zack as he greeted him. He was very curious regarding this boy everyone was talking about. Sir, he is being trained for the elite and refining his soul. Zack answered with an uncalled urgency. Then take me there, Alan said in a commanding tone. He looked quite composed but his eyes gleamed with flames. They started walking toward the training ground. Standing at the edge of it, Alan asked, which one is, what's his name? Zen. Zack pointed his finger toward a slim and handsome young man. Alan measured him up with his sharp eyes and just like Zack had informed him, he didn't find anything special about Zen. He was just a juvenile at the young bone age and had just reached the consummation of the nature level. Alan was a little doubtful of his abilities. Did he really activate the obelisk and go through a baptism by laws? Alan asked. Yes, sir, I wouldn't dare joke about such a thing. I'll talk to him after he finishes his practice, Alan said, nodding his head with a gentle smile on his face. Countless practitioners put immense effort to join Dragon Blaze Hall each year, given its immaculate reputation. It would be a piece of cake for Alan to compel this young man from the lower world to join them. As he finished speaking, a black ball floating not very far away from him started to vibrate. A loud clash of several brittle sounds filled the air. The sounds reverberated in the atmosphere for some time, before the soul-nurturing thunderlock on the surface of the black ball finally cracked. What is going on? Alan asked as the flames flashed in his dilated pupils. Isn't the soul-nurturing thunderlock used to imprison the owl beast evil spirit? How could it crack like that? Zack was too shocked to answer. He simply kept staring at the upheaval that was taking place in horror. The cracking continued as the practitioners who were practicing in the black ball drew their souls back. Hurry up, run. Having drawn their souls, they ran straight out of the training ground. Seeing how scared they were, Zack rushed to the ground and stopped one of the practitioners. What's going on? He asked. What happened to the ball? I don't know. That guy just rushed over to the owl beast evil spirit. And then the thunderlock broke, letting out the owl beast evil spirit. The boy said, stammering with fear. The boy didn't know Zen's name, but he was aware of him due to the fame he had gotten from breaking through the obstacles of different rings in the black ball. He was among the many practitioners who were very impressed by Zen. Which guy? Alan asked the boy, having come to the scene rushing after Zack. That one. He is still sitting there. The boy pointed at Zen, who sat in close vicinity. The soul-nurturing thunderlock was on the verge of breaking down. No one dared to stay in the black ball for another second, scared that they'd be killed in no time. The owl beast evil spirit was capable of killing anyone in its way. All the practitioners including Christopher ran for their lives without a second thought. Zen alone sat in the entirety of the ground, looking determined and striking. Alan frowned at him in disbelief. He is just a nature creature. How can his soul be powerful enough to stand the owl beast evil spirit? He asked in Zack's direction. Of course it can. He entered the core from the outermost ring of the black ball within a month. The ball cracked the moment he approached that owl beast devil spirit. The practitioner didn't know Alan and hence replied spontaneously. However, he guessed the man in front of him was a high-rank leader, making him feel a little relieved, which was why he didn't run away like the others. Sir, Zen might have. Zack started but then stopped in the middle of the sentence. Alan replied nonchalantly, no matter how capable he is, he cannot survive in a fight against the owl beast evil spirit. Seems like I came here for nothing. He stared at the black ball hovering in the air with a complex expression. If what the practitioner had said was right, and Zen truly had walked into the internal ring within a month, he definitely deserved to be explored by Dragon Blaze Hall. It's a pity, he is not lucky enough to join us, Zack said regrettably. As they talked, several people appeared flying above the training ground. They couldn't have been ordinary people as it was forbidden to fly in this city. The man who led them was tall and sturdy, garbed in silver armor. Many dragon textures were engraved on his shoulders. He appeared like someone who was a born warrior. Alan recognized him as soon as he spotted him and flew up in an instant, greeting him with his fingers crossed. Hi, Dennis. Dennis Tang was the lord of the city. His position was even higher than Alan in the dragon lineage human race. "Hello, Alan, I didn't expect to see you here. What happened?" Dennis asked with his eyes stuck to the black ball in the training ground. It had costed him a lot of energy to catch the owl beast devil spirit. It was very hard to cope with a spirit which had Jasper fighting soul. This was why they had arranged for a soul-nurturing thunderlock after capturing it. The reason they had gone to so much trouble was to get the cultivators to practice by taking use of the owl beast devil spirit. Although it was an effective cultivation method, soul practicing couldn't be finished in a short time. Practitioners who were not particularly persistent didn't stick out. Custom was, if a cultivator stepped into the sixth ring, he could practice his soul to the fighting soul realm. However, there weren't many people who could achieve that. "I just got here. A practitioner told us the thunderlock broke down the moment this boy Zen broke into the sixth ring," Alan said, shaking his head. "Zen?" It was Elder Wei who spoke from behind Dennis. Dennis looked back and asked, "Yes, what's wrong with him?" Dennis was unaware of Zen, which was why he didn't give a loud reaction at the name. When Alan told him he had broken into the sixth ring, he thought Zen was simply persistent and hence could reach the high level in soul cultivation, as many other practitioners before him had done the same in their time. Zen is the stowaway you pardoned. He has just reached the pinnacle of the nature level. In other words, his soul is still weak. He shouldn't be able to break into the sixth ring in such a state. Elder Wei said in total surprise. Dennis was surprised too. "Oh, I remember that. Some time ago, someone had presented Dennis with a paper of divine texture, with a sentence left by the cyan dragon on it, who was one of the 49 genuine dragons and called Josh. For Dennis and other big shots here, the genuine dragons were like gods. They had never had a chance of even spotting one from a distance. These dragons were extremely valued as even the dragon lineage human masters relied on these powerful dragons. Years ago, 9 of the 49 dragons had disappeared due to a mystical case they were involved in. Till date, nobody knew where they were or what had happened to them. Even people on levels as high as Dennis couldn't figure what had happened to the highest level members of the genuine dragon family. He didn't even need to know the detailed truth as long as he knew the 9 dragons had disappeared. When he saw the divine texture paper with the cyan dragon's message, he was utterly surprised and couldn't contain his excitement. This meant he could finally get in touch with a bigwig like Josh. What a great stroke of luck. But when he read the dragon's words on the margin, he had been a bit disappointed. Josh had written to Dennis that he had met Zen by chance in his travels. Although Zen wasn't a member of their family, if he flew up through the dragon soar arena, Dennis could take him as a member of the dragon lineage human race along. Josh had also warned Dennis not to reveal this news to anyone, or his life would be in danger. Dennis wondered how the 9 dragons had disappeared so mysteriously. There had to be a shocking conspiracy behind it. The warning had scared Dennis. He knew if he got involved in this fight, he could die without even knowing the cause of it. Dennis hadn't told anyone about the issue until now and hadn't even asked the name of that stowaway. He wasn't really a coward. One would expect someone in the position of the city lord to be courageous and able. But even the masters of the dragon lineage human race wouldn't like to be involved in this sort of a fight, let alone a city lord like him. He was surprised the person who had caused the trouble of the day was no one else but the stowaway he had pardoned. Wei, is Zen the lower world practitioner who experienced the baptism by laws? A woman wearing a red palace dress appeared from behind Wei and asked him. Her face radiated with beauty and charm. The most impressive thing about her was the blood-red mole in the middle of her brows, that almost made her look coquettish. Flames flashed in Alan's eyes as they landed upon her beautiful face. Smiling lightly, he bowed and said, "Madam, I didn't expect to see you here." This woman was no one but the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace. The woman didn't answer Alan and descended toward the black ball. The Dragon Abyss Palace and the Dragon Blaze Hall didn't get along too well. Chapter 435, I Don't Like You. The head of the Dragon Abyss Palace had flown straight into the black ball and was devoured in the blink of an eye. The soul-nurturing thunderlock right above the black ball was uncontrollably surging with immense destructive power. However, she was still kept safe and sound somehow. The second she soared into the black ball, the only reaction she had was, "Huh." With her gorgeous eyes wide open. She had more than enough strength to hold back the strongest owl beast, so defeating such a weak one would be a walk in the park. The thing that managed to surprise her was not the owl beast itself, but Zen's soul just lying in the distance. The owl beast just vanished without a trace. The only thing she could make out was Zen's soul resting in the middle of the darkness. Just what could have possibly happened here? How the heck did all of this happen? And where in the world did the owl beast go? Baffled and left utterly dumbfounded, the head of Dragon Abyss Palace had a hard time wrapping her mind around what on earth had just transpired. Bang, bang. On the other hand, the other portions of the soul-nurturing thunderlock simply persisted on overflowing with an endless supply of thundering light. Zen's soul was repeatedly getting bent out of shape with diverse colors, which looked much like the oil on the water drifting away into vibrant ripples. Wow, this is unbelievable. His soul could end up bursting forth into the level of the fighting soul. Upon noticing that, she was beginning to get serious, with her curiosity quite piqued. Elder Wei had briefed her that Zen had undergone a baptism by laws, so she immediately flew straight toward the black ball solely for the purpose of helping Zen. Little did she know that Zen could probably attempt reaching the level of fighting soul. Isn't he someone on the nature level? Just what exactly did he do to be capable of reaching the level of fighting soul in such a short span of time? She was completely perplexed, because all throughout her whole life, she had only witnessed a handful of skillful warriors, who were either on or above the level of internal elixir, successfully reach the level of fighting soul. Come to think of it, even some of the ones already on the level of virtual tribulation realm had failed to reach the fighting soul level. Surely, this was a special one. Lifting her head up a little, the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace walked over to where Zen was. When she stretched out her arms and extended her hand, a dark red pill appeared out of her white wrist. The pill, rather than being round, actually had an unusual shape, and it was bouncing continuously, akin to a living creature. Slowly but surely, she carefully tossed the pill forward and it went right into Zen's soul. Despite the fact that Zen was dead set and focused on breaking through the higher level no matter what, he somehow still managed to notice a girl wearing palace clothes, who had been standing in a place not too far away from him, pulling out a weird object and throwing it at him. That being said, the only thing that shifted was the look on his face, because this was just such a crucial moment for him in order to reach the fighting soul level. No reason to be alarmed. The pill is essential and it can also be of great assistance to your soul, he perceived the voice of the cyan dragon inside his head. To be triumphant over the owl beast, the cyan dragon had actually gone the extra mile, and now, he was already worn out, so he thought that it would suffice to simply remind Zen without mentioning any further details. As luck would have it, those words were enough to help Zen ease up and let the pill pierce straight into his soul. The pill, much like red ink fanning out in the water, scattered everywhere the moment it entered Zen's soul. Due to the effects of the pill, every color moving all over Zen's soul accumulated much faster, and as for his soul, it gradually became much more rigid. Upon reaching a certain extent, a red light suddenly illuminated him. Zen's soul returned to his body without incident the second the red light emerged, and with that, the first thing he did was open his eyes. If a person's soul had enough strength, his eyes would be shining with radiance and vitality. That was how they were able to track down some of the most powerful men whose eyes were shining brightly and burning with energy. Zen's eyes were glowing remarkably, just like two stars soaring in the dark sky, letting it be known to some masters that Zen had successfully attained the fighting soul level. The fighting soul was just a castle in the air hopelessly being chased after by most warriors. If one was fortunate enough to reach the fighting soul level, his soul would be completely altered, making him significantly stronger than ever before. At this point, the soul wasn't weak in any way whatsoever, and it even had the ability to attach itself to leaves or falling petals, perhaps to engage in battle with an enemy. That was the reason why people had been saying time and time again that falling leaves and flowers could become deadly through the skills of a powerful warrior. But when all were said and done, it could be beyond a mere mortal's capability to reach the fighting soul level. Only a select few amongst all of the warriors on the internal elixir level could hope to train and reach the fighting soul level for the sake of increasing the strength of their soul. A majority of the warriors in the virtual tribulation realm couldn't ever reach the fighting soul level in their lifetime. Zen, a warrior whose prior achievement was reaching the nature level, had attained the fighting soul level. What an astonishing feat! The warriors who had experienced training side by side with Zen were not as surprised as opposed to everyone else, the reason being that they had witnessed firsthand Zen's progress and rapid improvement, and they also watched as Zen stepped into the inner circle from the outer circle in order to move closer to the owl beast. Dennis, Wei, Alan, and a few other people weren't able to see what occurred in the black ball, and all they knew was that a guy who was at the nature level shouldn't have been capable of reaching the fighting soul level at all. It was an utterly inconceivable idea in their eyes. Hold on just a second, why does it seem as though there's some sort of unusual attribute contained inside his fighting soul? With his glare fixated on Zen, Dennis sensed that there was something out of the ordinary being exuded by Zen's body. Elder Wei realized in an instant what Zen had been through and let out a smile. If I'm guessing correctly, our leader decided to hand over to him a Ganoderma soul pill produced by the Dragon Abyss Palace. Alan forced a dull smile and remarked, your Dragon Abyss Palace was quite the generous one. A Ganoderma soul pill is much too costly even if its power is rather below mediocre. After saying that, he went down to the ground and whispered to Zen under his breath, Zen, be one of us with the Dragon Blaze Hall, and I can promise you that you will have a bright future ahead of you. Banding together with us, the finest within the realm, I assure you, would be the best decision you're ever going to make in your lifetime. Knitting his eyebrows, Zen shot Alan a glance. Indeed, he could feel the power of everyone there, but Alan's way with words made Zen feel nauseous and totally repulsed, prompting him to ask the person standing close to him, who might you be? For what reason should I become a member of the Dragon Blaze Hall? Aha, who I am is but a trivial matter, what you need to understand is that there are billions of aspiring warriors whose dream is to become part of the Dragon Blaze Hall. Sad to say, the ones who are actually qualified are few and far between. If you were to join our Dragon Blaze Hall, you are going to be destined for greatness, and I'll even throw in an extra 50 drops of genuine dragon blood on behalf of our Dragon Blaze Hall. Alan's eyes were already blazing with triumph as he was quite certain that his offer to Zen would be hard to refuse. For a warrior coming from the lower world like Zen, a drop of genuine dragon blood was more than sufficient to entice him, and 50 drops, even more so. Zen smiled at him and responded with a straight face, thank you. I appreciate it, I really do. Upon hearing that, Alan's face brightened up, and he was already grinning much like a Cheshire cat. He was under the assumption that his discernment was on point, that the guy on consummation of nature level would be much too thrilled. It couldn't have been further from the truth though, as Alan's smile barely even lasted for a minute. Zen added immediately, but I'm afraid I can't accept your offer, because I'm not interested in joining the Dragon Blaze Hall. Why is that? 50 drops of genuine dragon blood was still inadequate. The genuine dragon blood can dramatically increase your blood concentrations. Weren't you aware of that? Alan blurted out subconsciously, his eyes darkened out of confusion. Zen's response greatly agitated him, to such an extent that he seemed to have momentarily lost track of the high position he was in as well as his morale, causing him to act far too different from how he usually did. It's not because of the genuine dragon blood, Zen explained. If not that, then what should matter even more? Alan cried further with great intensity. His full strength was far greater than Zen could ever fathom, so there couldn't possibly be anyone who wouldn't be overwhelmed by the power Alan exuded. If he hadn't attained the fighting soul, Zen's soul would have been destroyed instantly when faced with such intimidating strength which Alan gave off. However, at that point in time, Zen had already successfully reached fighting soul level, meaning he was capable of resisting such an enormous amount of power with ease. It's quite simple, really. Because I don't appreciate the way you speak to me, Zen answered in all honesty and then walked directly to the girl wearing palace clothes who just came out of the black ball. He was aware that during the time when he was planning to reach the fighting soul level, that girl was the one who helped him, and truth be told, he was actually a man with a heart filled with so much gratefulness. You. Alan clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as a result, his eyes instantaneously fuming with intense hostility. Oh, how he longed to kill Zen. That man, Alan, was seething with anger due to Zen declining his offer to join the Dragon Blaze Hall. To add insult to injury, Zen even had the nerve to talk to him like that, leaving him downright infuriated. Prior to that point, no one had ever found the guts to talk to him that way, so let alone a man of the meager nature level. Everyone had heard of Alan's immense power. To Alan, killing Zen swiftly would be just a piece of cake. However, Zen had the audacity to humiliate him. How could Alan let that one slip? As luck would have it, at that very moment, the words from the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace managed to diffuse Alan's desire to annihilate Zen. Zen has a point. Since he isn't fond of you, what other reason would he have for joining the Dragon Blaze Hall? The girl wearing the palace clothes giggled at the scene in front of her. The girl's remarks helped Alan get to thinking. Alan was actually just a vice leader, and amongst the dragon lineage human, he was significantly much inferior to the girl who was the leader of Dragon Abyss Palace both in position and in power. So, of course, he couldn't just kill Zen right in front of the girl. I don't know how to thank you enough, madam. Thanks for lending a helping hand when I was attempting to reach the fighting soul level. Zen leaned over to pay his respects. Ha ha! Hearing Zen's words of gratitude, the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace merrily roared with laughter. Madam, you look rather young, akin to a girl of sweet 16. Is referring to you as madam a bit too much? Zen clarified, unable to hold back his laughter. Hearing Zen's way of speaking toward their head, Elder Wei couldn't help cursing him deeply in his heart. This Zen, such insolence talking about our leader's age casually. Do you have some kind of death wish? Just how badly do you want to get sent straight to? Chapter 436. A gift to someone who is worthy. Every martial arts cultivator had undergone rigorous martial arts refinement that improved their physical fitness and endurance. They were able to surpass human limitations, even the standard human lifespan. Thus, they could live longer than any normal human. An ordinary human could rarely live more than 100 years. The martial arts cultivators, on the other hand, could live much more than 100 years. And the martial arts cultivators at the same level as the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace had an average lifespan of 10,000 years. The head of the Dragon Abyss Palace looked like a 16-year-old girl, but her actual age was already beyond a human's imagination. The actual age of the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace might be unknown or had been lost in counting. But it could be traced back as to when she was actually 16 years old. At that time, Zen's ancestors had not yet been born in this world. Even the empires that existed before the Burning Sky Empire had not yet existed. But Zen was so naive about this fact that he even thought the head of the Dragon Abyss was 16 years old. It sounded offensive, but she didn't mind it at all. On the contrary, she was flattered. Despite her age, she was still a woman who required that kind of attention and flattery from time to time. But since she became the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace, no one dared to speak to her so casually that she rarely heard such kind of flattery. Women always wanted to look young despite their age. They required that kind of validation, especially from men. And the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace was no exception. After all, she was still a woman. The craze of women wanting to look young even after they aged had created a need for anti-aging pills. But these anti-aging pills were quite expensive in the upper world. The head of Dragon Abyss Palace had spent a lot on anti-aging pills to remain young-looking all these years. But despite that, no one had praised her youthful look and glow. So, Zen's words was the most flattering thing she had heard in her lifetime. She felt that her efforts in keeping her youthful look had paid off when a man finally took notice. Silly, stop flattering me now, just call me aunt. She waved her hands and giggled. She had to be realistic about their age gap and set the right atmosphere between her and Zen. Zen did no longer argue and just heeded her orders. Then she continued with a smile, I heard from Elder Wei about your intention to join our Dragon Abyss Palace. Is that true? Yes, that's right, Zen answered. Indeed, Zen had intended to be part of the Dragon Abyss Palace. Upon hearing this, the head of Dragon Abyss Palace reached out her hand and flipped it over. Then, out of the blue, a bottle appeared. There are about 20 drops of genuine dragon blood inside this bottle. You can use them to increase the concentration of genuine dragon blood in your blood. When Alan heard this, he gave a cold snort on the side. He had previously offered Zen 50 drops of genuine dragon blood as a reward, but the latter didn't take it. Now, the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace was offering him lesser drops of the said blood, and Alan thought that Zen was being a fool in this deal. Suddenly, the head of Dragon Abyss Palace turned her hand over again and said, Now, this is a drop of genuine dragon blood essence. It's not the ordinary genuine dragon blood. You can use it to save your life at a crucial moment. This time, Alan's eyes had nearly popped out of his head. Dennis, Elder Wei, and Zack were also astonished at the current offer. They didn't say a word, but their eyes were showing great eagerness at the sight of that one drop of genuine dragon blood essence. The genuine dragon blood and the genuine dragon blood essence sounded alike, but they were essentially different in all aspects. A genuine dragon's body contained an amount of blood enough to wash away a whole continent. Hence, the dragon lineage human had plenty of genuine dragon blood to give away to their younger members as rewards. However, the genuine dragon blood essence was quite rare compared to the genuine dragon blood. The dragon lineage human built 936 halls and 1,300 palaces in total. From the 2,000 branches of the race, some of them were lucky enough to possess over 100 drops of genuine dragon blood essence, while the rest only had dozens of drops. Hence, the other halls and palaces were eager to get even one drop of this precious treasure. If the heads of these halls and palaces had the chance to acquire it, they would immediately use it to strengthen themselves. The genuine dragon blood essence was equivalent to 1,000 drops of the genuine dragon blood. That was if someone was willing to exchange their genuine dragon blood essence for some genuine dragon blood. But just now, the head of Dragon Abyss Palace casually gifted 1 drop of the genuine dragon blood essence to Zen. It was quite an extravagant gift. If anyone was offered the genuine dragon blood essence, he wouldn't think twice and would just blindly accept it. Zen must be flattered by the gift that the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace was offering. Alan, Dennis, Elder Wei, and Zack were all taken aback by her generosity towards Zen. They didn't think that she could be that generous to anyone. Dennis, who envied Zen right now, had to ask, "Do you really intend to give it to him as a gift? The genuine dragon blood essence would be too much of a gift to that boy." The head of Dragon Abyss Palace, however, raised her eyebrows at Dennis and said, "Of course I do. Did you hear me stutter? Have I ever changed my mind?" Dennis waved his hand. He didn't mean to offend her by asking. He said, "No, I didn't mean to question your generosity. I just feel that genuine dragon blood essence is rare. It's the most valuable thing to just be gifted to anyone." Dennis could not shrug off that feeling. The genuine dragon blood essence was one of the Dragon Abyss Palace's most important treasures. It seemed too good to be true that the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace would just give it to someone from the lower world like Zen, who was not even qualified to be in their presence. Dennis sensed that it might have something to do with the dragon named Josh. Or perhaps the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace had found something else. However, Dennis could not bring himself to ask these questions. Besides, he had got the message from the Cyan Dragon, so he wouldn't dare to interfere with Zen too much. Moreover, no matter what he thought about it, there was nothing he could do right now. Whatever it was in Dragon Abyss Palace head's mind, it was none of his business. While Dennis had somehow figured it out that it was all because of the Cyan Dragon, Elder Wei, Alan and Zack still had difficulty in uncovering the truth. They were still wondering why the head of Dragon Abyss Palace offered to give the genuine dragon blood essence to Zen. But among the three, it was Elder Wei who felt particularly disgruntled. He was one of the lucky ones to get a drop of the genuine dragon blood essence as a reward for his significant contribution to the Dragon Abyss Palace. However, it didn't come on a silver platter. He had almost lost his life to deserve that kind of reward. But Zen had just arrived in the Dragon Abyss Palace and hadn't proved anything yet, but still got a drop of genuine dragon blood essence as a gift. What was so special about Zen that the head of the Dragon Abyss Palace had favored him that much? But despite his envy, Elder Wei believed that it must be Zen's good luck that brought him that fortune. "It's a special gift, so it is just fitting for me to give it to someone who is truly worthy," said the head of Dragon Abyss Palace. She then turned to Zen, beaming a smile and said, "Zen, do you agree?" "Yes, what you said is truly right," Zen replied happily. Afterward, he took the munificent gifts from her hand. "Cyan Dragon, do you think that she has noticed something about you?" Zen asked the Cyan Dragon in his mind. "Probably. She's a smart woman, and she might have noticed something when you entered the level of Fighting Soul. But this is not the time to worry about it. I think she understands what she should do," the Cyan Dragon replied. His tone was rough and weak. He hadn't completely recovered from his fight with the Owl Beast Ghost. Zen didn't think that the head of Dragon Abyss Palace would just give him the gift because of his great talent. She must have sensed the presence of the Cyan Dragon within Zen, otherwise, she wouldn't treat him any differently. Acquiring the genuine dragon blood essence was a rare opportunity that no one would pass. And getting it without doing anything was a once-in-a-million chance. Zen must have been truly lucky that the universe collided for him to get this rare opportunity. Zen immediately stored the genuine dragon blood and blood essence in his space ring. At once, Dennis walked up to him and said, "Zen, there's one thing I need to ask you about." "I'm listening, sir," Zen bowed to him with clasped hands. He wasn't sure what did he owe Dennis to get this attention. Or was he getting into trouble? "You were the last one who left the Black Ball, and you reached the level of Fighting Soul near the Owl Beast Ghost. But after that, it disappeared from the soul-nurturing Thunderlock. Do you know what happened to it?" Dennis asked directly. Dennis had the feeling that Zen had something to do with the disappearance of the Owl Beast Ghost. Everyone had the same thought. It couldn't be just a coincidence that the Owl Beast Ghost had disappeared simultaneously when Zen had made the new breakthrough. Dennis couldn't still figure out why the Owl Beast Ghost had just suddenly disappeared. It was bothering him for quite a while, and now was the right time to finally know the truth. Despite reaching the Fighting Soul level, it would still be impossible for Zen to defeat the Owl Beast Ghost just like that. What could have happened to the owl beast ghost if it hadn't been killed by Zen? Zen had foreseen that this would happen when he agreed to the Cyan Dragon's request. But just as the Cyan Dragon had told him, Zen played dumb in front of Dennis. The owl beast ghost, I don't know, Zen said with a confused look on his face. He stuttered to be more realistic. When I heard the crack of the thunder lock, I saw the owl beast ghost jumping on me. That's all I could remember. After that, I lost consciousness. The part where he lost consciousness was true. When the Cyan Dragon destroyed the thunder lock, the influence of the owl beast ghost was released and overwhelmed Zen. His soul could still not stand the impact of the owl beast ghost even if he had improved it. In the sixth circle inside the black ball, the pressure upon Zen's soul was already 32 times stronger than that in the first circle. And when the owl beast ghost was freed from its chains, the pressure became stronger and harder to bear. The combined pressure from the sixth circle and the owl beast ghost's influence had made Zen's soul almost split up. Luckily, the Cyan Dragon had activated the furnace on time and its colorful glow had repaired Zen's soul. With the help of that mysterious colorful glow from the furnace, Zen had managed to enter the level of fighting soul. You really don't know? Dennis asked again. He didn't believe that Zen didn't know what happened. He could see through Zen's eyes that the latter wasn't telling the whole truth. You better tell me what you know because the owl beast ghost is an important treasure of our city. There must be something you know about the disappearance of the owl beast ghost. Chapter 437, Time to Return. Zen couldn't think of a better explanation for the disappearance of the huge owl beast's devil spirit. However, it was an undeniable fact that it disappeared when he was around. Dennis was polite by asking this way. If it were not for Josh and the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace, he would have arrested the culprit already. Seeing the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace offering Zen a drop of genuine dragon blood essence, Dennis understood that he couldn't harm Zen. Moreover, Zen was somehow involved with Josh and the mystery of the 9 dragons. So, he was eager to stay out of this matter. But it was troublesome to catch an owl beast's devil spirit. Zen had to compensate Dennis for his loss. Dennis knew that it would be useless to ask a cultivator, who was at the consummation of nature level for repayment. He said that intentionally to test the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace. As he had expected, Zen stayed silent, and it was the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace who spoke first. It is only an owl beast's devil spirit. We, Dragon Abyss Palace, can pay for it. But Dennis, do you really want me to catch an owl beast's devil spirit for you? It was no easy feat to catch an owl beast's devil spirit. It usually took a bit of luck to find one. Even if a cultivator found an owl beast's devil spirit, it would be extremely difficult to catch it. Since the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace offered to compensate Dennis, he didn't plan on making things difficult. If he offended the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace, she might take Zen by force. And then he could do nothing about it. So he decided to end the matter for the moment. Let's go. Alan waved his hand and left with Zack. Since the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace had offered a drop of genuine dragon blood essence to Zen, Alan knew he had lost and that it was meaningless for him to stay. Even though the leader of the Dragon Blaze Hall had come in person and made the offer, he couldn't tempt Zen. Offering a genuine dragon blood essence to a boy at the consummation of nature level. It was a complete waste. The leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace must have been out of her mind. Seeing that Alan had left, the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace smiled. She turned to Zen and said, although you have a solid foundation, your cultivation base is still very low. This is the city that leads to the lower world. There are a lot of training methods that will help you to improve. I suggest that you refine the genuine dragon blood essence here. And after that, you can come to the Dragon Abyss Palace through the transmission platform. It was a good suggestion. But Zen shook his head and said, I'm afraid I won't be able to accept your offer this time. I came to the upper world purely for cultivation. But I have unsettled issues in the lower world. So, I can't go to the Dragon Abyss Palace at the moment. Zen knew that he would benefit tremendously from joining the Dragon Abyss Palace. In the world where Zen came from, cultivators who wanted to grasp the law power had to learn through the inscriptions on broken obelisks. But in the upper world, there were complete stone carvings, and various cultivation methods that were beyond Zen's imagination. However, it was unrealistic for Zen to stay in the genuine dragon world. He still had a lot of things to do in the central region. Ever since he had embarked on the road of martial arts, Zen had only had one priority, to save his sister, Yan. Yan was at the illuminating soul realm, and she had only to make one breakthrough to cross the big realm gap and reach the internal elixir realm. It might be a great challenge for any other cultivators to achieve this. Even if they spent hundreds of years, they might not surpass the big realm gap, which was as difficult to cross as a nature chasm. But with Yan's great talent, and Eddie's methods, it was not as challenging as it seemed for Yan to enter the internal elixir realm. There wasn't much time left for Zen. He had to hurry. The leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace nodded and said, "If you have unfinished things in the lower world, your cultivator spirit won't be fully focused. This will certainly hinder your practice." Then, she took out a small amulet. "This amulet can save you in times of danger. I can't help you further. The success of martial arts depends on your efforts." What the leader said echoed the thoughts of the Cyan Dragon. If the young generation of a clan were offered too much help, it would do more harm than good, as their will of martial arts wouldn't have much chance to be tempered. And it would be hard for them to make any achievement without strong determination. Zen nodded. He couldn't agree with her more. As the saying went, a gentleman should continually strive for self-perfection. The success obtained by relying on others was not success in a real sense. Only by improving oneself would a cultivator be able to win respect from others. Seeing that the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace had offered Zen an amulet, Dennis was sure that she had seen something in Zen. He assumed that she also had some knowledge about the mystery of the 9 dragons. The only other explanation could be that she wanted to take a risk by betting on Zen. Although Dennis was the leader of the city, he didn't dare to get involved in this. After all, the higher the award, the greater the risk. This was a serious matter in the genuine dragon world. If the Dragon Abyss Palace thought they could take a share, Dennis couldn't stop them even though he envied them. He decided to act like he had not seen it. After the leader of the Dragon Abyss Palace left, Elder Wei led Zen to a cultivation place. Zen had comprehended some laws and tempered his soul. Now, the next step was to improve his cultivation base. Although Zen had ascended the Dragon Soar Arena and his level had reached the consummation of nature level, his progress was still too slow. Before they went for the next practice place, Elder Wei gave Zen a set of equipment. It was the equipment that every common disciple of the Dragon Abyss Palace would get. To Zen's astonishment, the basic set of equipment turned out to be a low-grade sacred sword, and a treasured body protection garment at the low grade of sacred level. These sacred weapons were much sought after in the central region. But here, they were equipment for common disciples. Zen was flustered. Things were so different in these two places. Time passed quickly in the upper world. Zen's cultivation base was improved rapidly in the secret cultivation places of the upper world. Within 2 months, Zen made a breakthrough in the consummation of nature level and entered the illuminating soul realm. And with consecutive breakthroughs after that, Zen successfully entered the 3rd grade of the illuminating soul realm. It's time to return. Standing at the gate of the city, Zen looked at the hundreds of thousands of teleporters that spread endlessly in the sky. At the same time, Zen's life vitality began to burn. His body soared to the sky like that of a flying bird. Finally, he jumped into the teleporter that had brought him here. Once in the teleporter, a gentle light was cast on Zen. With the light shining on him, Zen's blood and flesh disintegrated into small particles. As the light above the teleporter became brighter, the numerous particles rushed into the sky with the light. Oracle City, known as the capital of tens of thousands of merchants, was the most prosperous commercial center in the central region. In the city, as long a person had money, he could get everything he wanted. Oracle City was able to prosper largely because of the World Commercial Alliance. The headquarters of the World Commercial Alliance was situated here. The news that the Dragon Soar Arena had been moved to the Oracle City got around fast. And the martial arts contest also provoked much discussion among the people in the central region. The martial arts contest that was held every 10 years in Oracle City was the focus of all the cultivators in the central region, as it would decide the future of all the sects. The leader of the Ethereal Spirit sect and the septuplets of Ethereal Spirit had shown extraordinary talent in the martial arts contest decades ago. As long as a cultivator got a top ranking in the contest, he could have a place of his own in the central region in the future. But this time, the martial arts contest would take place ahead of schedule. It was all because of the Dragon Soar Arena. Everyone knew that the martial arts contest held this year would be fiercer than ever, and of course, more splendid. So after the news was released 3 months ago, many cultivators from different places gathered in Oracle City. For this reason, the inns and taverns were all jam-packed. And the prices rose accordingly. The cost for an inn room for one night, which was usually several low-grade life vitality crystals, had now soared to tens of low-grade life vitality crystals. In an instant, cries of discontent rose all around. But the people could do nothing about it. If they wanted to have fun, they had to pay. The Dragon Soar Arena was placed in the center of Oracle City, with fences and armed guards surrounding it. Meanwhile, Cloud Hall, Bloodwood Cliff, Black Mountain Sect, and Ethereal Spirit Sect all sent people to guard it. In fact, the elders of the sects had gathered here a couple of days earlier. Aside from them, people from the World Commercial Alliance also took command here. No one dared to put their hands on the Dragon Soar Arena. If someone tried to take it, he would be courting death. The several big sects sent people to guard the Dragon Soar Arena to declare that they also had a share in it. It was a way to showcase their powers and intimidate others. Today, the weather was good. After summer began, a rain cooled the hot weather that had lasted for days. A large number of cultivators stood around the Dragon Soar Arena. They were watching it and discussing it. These cultivators were not qualified to participate in the contest, but they heard that the Dragon Soar Arena was the most valuable reward for the winner. It was enough to tempt people to come to look at it. It is said that anyone who enters the Dragon Soar Arena could fly into the upper world. And he will become an immortal or a god. What a treasure! Everyone must covet it. No wonder so many big sects are fighting for it. I will spare no efforts to get into the sect that wins the Dragon Soar Arena. The sects competing in the contest are at the 4th grade or above. Forget about the Dragon Soar Arena. Do you think you have the ability to enter one of them now? As the several cultivators discussed the contest with interest, a bright light suddenly appeared in the sky. The light seemed to be like a meteor that was falling from the sky rapidly. It shot to the top of the Dragon Soar Arena. Chapter 438. Are you courting death? What's that? Tell me, is it possible that an immortal is coming down from the sky? Yes, probably. The Dragon Soar Arena is conjoined to the upper world. Who knows? We can most probably even see an immortal. The onlookers discussed among each other but failed to notice what was happening around them. Even though they were oblivious, the warriors who stood guard for a while knew what was going on. The guards knew that somebody had returned from the upper world. It was most probably the nature creature who had flown away from the Dragon Soar Arena a few months ago. After moving the Dragon Soar Arena to the Oracle City, the main sects had all tested it. They even ordered the warriors to pass the 6 layers and commenced the transmission array with a dragon-shaped jade pendant. Regardless of their efforts, however, all of them failed to be transmitted in this particular way. The moment the white light appeared, the warrior that was supposed to fly to the upper world was thrown out of the Dragon Soar Arena. The nature creature was allowed to be transmitted to the upper world. However, after he'd made his way to the upper world, no one else was permitted to follow him. It was no doubt that there had indeed been something unusual happening to the nature creature as no one was able to follow him. To discover the reason, several runic experts had entered the top part of the Dragon Soar Arena. Their studies concluded that there was something wrong with the runes in the transmission array. The runic experts in the central region, of course, were not allowed to know about the divine texture. Even though they comprised the idea that the reason why other warriors could not be successfully sent to the upper world was due to the runes, they failed to figure out what the actual problem was. As they were unaware of the divine texture, there was nothing they could do about it. For this given reason solely, the young master and the leader of the Shui clan were both taken to the Oracle City for questioning. Thinking about the nature creature the young master had encountered that day, he told them his looks, age, cultivation situation and any other possible feature he could think of. There were, however, far too many nature creatures living in the central region. With the limited information about him, it seemed next to impossible to know who it was. So, the truth remained unknown to all of the warriors. That was the reason why each sect had sent their warriors to watch over the Dragon Soar Arena. Their primary concern was to observe it and discover exactly how the Dragon Soar Arena could work by learning from the nature creature. The warrior sent by the Cloud Hall was considered to be one of the strongest elite disciples of the elite house, Fred Lee, who had reached the consummation level of the illuminating soul realm. Discovering and looking at the white light, Fred started to move. He proceeded by stepping on the ground with a pair of simple shoes and then rushed to the gate of the Dragon Soar Arena. This nature creature turned out to be the key to the Dragon Soar Arena. A Dragon Soar Arena where warriors could not be transmitted to the upper world was only one place for the warriors to cultivate themselves. So, it was the nature creature who made the arena still valuable. The Dragon Soar Arena was an adequate cultivating place. However, if it wasn't able to connect the upper world, it would not have any relevance for the sects to fight over. Fred was the first to stand guard at the gate of the Dragon Soar Arena, followed by the other warriors. Most of the warriors were at the completion of the Illuminating Soul Realm and the strongest ones in their sects. They all understood the importance of the nature creature, which led them to make the decision to bring Zen back to their sects. Each of them had a goal to be the first to enter the gate. There were so many people wanting to enter the gate, that the crowd managed to block nearly the entire opening of the gate. Looking at the Dragon Soar Arena's gate, the disciples felt extremely nervous even though all of them had achieved a high level at the consummation of the Illuminating Soul Realm. In their eyes, it was the nature creature who was in the Dragon Soar Arena. However, there was still a chance for a super powerful figure from the upper world to be in the arena. Those who were super powerful could not be defeated. They had strength beyond their imagination and could easily make mountains collapse in an instant. Should it be a fairy, the situation would be better. However, if it were creatures that liked killing others, it would be a nightmare and they could most probably be killed by one hit. Although there was always a chance of something bad happening, all of them stuck to the gate of the Dragon Soar Arena. The nature creature was far too important for them. If they were able to bring him back to their sects, they would most definitely create a contribution to their sects and additionally receive rewards beyond their imagination. Every warrior at the gate had anxiety. The expressions on their faces shifted from one feeling to another. "I hear footsteps," someone in the crowd said in a fearful voice. All of them remained silent and listened carefully. There were indeed steady footsteps which could be heard from the inside of the Dragon Soar Arena. "It must be a human being," another one added. With the sound of the footsteps drawing closer, the warriors became extremely nervous. Even Fred, who always kept calm, furrowed his eyebrows and a serious look appeared on his face. Poop! Suddenly, the gates of the Dragon Soar Arena were opened. Seeing the warrior standing behind the gate, all the disciples at the consummation level of the Illuminating Soul Realm were astonished. How could he be a warrior in the Illuminating Soul Realm? Previously, they tried to guess what was in the Dragon Soar Arena countless times. It could probably be the warrior at nature level, or an immortal, or even the exceedingly powerful genuine dragon. Other than that, it could even have been a completely new and unknown creature. Despite their ideas of what it should have been, all they saw in front of them was an ordinary warrior who had reached the third level of the Illuminating Soul Realm. What happened? While most of them felt surprised, Fred managed to open his eyes widely. He was left stunned by the one who was standing in front of them. After a while, his lips moved and he spoke, "Zen Luo." "How can it be Zen? Isn't he a nature creature?" "Oh, mine, that nature creature who has been transmitted away successfully was Zen. How could it be? Only 3 months have passed. Zen astonishingly improved from his nature level to the Illuminating Soul Realm within as short as 3 months. Is Zen at the Illuminating Soul Realm now?" Fred was extremely confused. Actually, Fred was a disciple with discretion. Even the elders of the Cloud Hall managed to speak highly of him as he was relatively mature. The elders also praised Fred's warrior spirit, which was quite impressive and strong. As long as he focused on himself, as well as his cultivation, he would manage to obtain countless accomplishments in the future. However, now Fred was overwhelmed by the thoughts of confusion. He was really shocked, which left his head completely blank. Fred was, in fact, just as confused as the other warriors. However, nobody knew Zen. Thus, all of them managed to recover from their astonishment relatively quickly. Whoever he was, they would capture him first as he was nothing but a warrior at the Illuminating Soul Realm. The first one to start his action was Bevis II from the mysterious Luna Hall. As he stretched out his hand, all of his bones made crackling sounds. His 5 fingers seemed to become longer, much like the paw of a devil. He charged at Zen and tried to grab a hold of Zen's head. "What do you want?" After Zen pushed the gate open, he saw a crowd of warriors at the consummation level of the Illuminating Soul Realm. They seemed fierce and as though they were ready to attack him. "What are we doing? Come with me. If you stay here, you will be killed," Bevis said as he gave a cold smile. In his eyes, Zen had only reached the 3rd level of the Illuminating Soul Realm. It was thus easy for him to catch Zen. Stop. At that particular moment, Fred had managed to recover. He finally realized what was happening. His feet stomped on the ground slightly. Using the technique of long fist, he charged at Bevis. The long fist was very ordinary as it was generally practiced by the majority of warriors. It was indeed the case, the same with Zen's basic swordsmanship. Many warriors practiced the basic swordsmanship once they commenced practicing their sword skills. This technique was also practiced by most of the beginner warriors. However, different people had distinct methods of practicing the long fist. Fred, for instance, managed to stick to practicing the long fist for dozens of years. He even managed to achieve a level high enough to simplify it to its essential nature. Bang! After a single punch, Fred managed to have Bevis from the mysterious Luna Hall retreat. "Fred Lee, what is your goal here? Do you want to be killed?" Bevis shouted angrily. He started his action first. However, he then stepped back. How could he not be angry? Although Fred managed to stop Bevis, he could not prevent others at the same time. "Ha ha, little guy, you'd better come with me." Mason Jong from Bloodwood Cliff laughed. At the same time, his two hands stretched towards Zen like scissors. "Oh, no, that's too bad," Fred recalled to himself. His heart sank immediately. A warrior like Bevis was tough enough for him to fight against. However, how could he manage to prevent other warriors who had similar powers? The life vitality in Mason's hands was extremely sharp. He tried to attack Zen's face, while at the same time targeting Zen's legs. His attack to the upper body was a mere gesture while the lower body was the actual intended attack. In fact, he was planning to strike his legs so hard that it would break Zen's legs. His only thought was that it would be easier to take Zen away by breaking Zen's legs first. Seeing Fred stop one of the warriors in his tracks, Zen wanted to say something, but never expected another warrior not to give him a chance to do so whatsoever. This annoyed Zen greatly. "Are you courting death?" Zen asked coldly. Zen clenched his fist, his body drifting backwards like a ghost, which allowed himself to dodge Mason's attack easily. Then Zen's fist stretched out as fast as lightning. Before Mason could even react, Zen punched him on the chest heavily. Piz! Though at the consummation level of the illuminating soul realm, Mason was thrown at quite a distance. Mason's body broke the handrail, which wasn't even close to them. He then hit several onlookers. Before he managed to stop, he additionally destroyed a few houses. The warriors that wanted to seize Zen still managed to keep their gestures. However, they were left stunned, standing still in their tracks like zombies. Chapter 439. Any other volunteers? The levels of cultivation had significant differences in terms of power and strength. The cultivators at the pinnacle of the illuminating soul realm were far more powerful and stronger than the third grade of the same realm. Hence, the practitioners who had reached the pinnacle of the illuminating soul realm had rushed to Zen in high confidence. Since they had already reached such a cultivation level, they thought that catching a third-grade practitioner like Zen would be a piece of cake. It was an easy way to make contributions, hence, everyone rushed to catch Zen. When Fred faced Bevis of the mysterious Luna Hall, others took it as an opportunity to chase down and attack Zen simultaneously. Among those who were attacking Zen, Mason was swiftest and most vicious. He didn't care whether Zen would be injured or broken. If he could still breathe and talk, that would be fine. He vowed to catch and take Zen back no matter what it could cost him. Mason took the initiative and started the attack. As the others saw this, they could do nothing but feel bad for Zen. They knew that once Mason put his heart into something, he would surely do anything to get it done. And now that he was determined to catch Zen, the latter could only wish to see another day. If Zen got hit by Mason's attack, he could lose his legs and might not be able to walk again. However, something unexpected happened. Before anyone could realize what was happening, Zen had already hit Mason with one blow. The blow was so powerful that Mason flew out. He hit on several houses and knocked them down before finally hitting the ground. He was badly injured that even if his wounds healed, it might take half a year to completely recover. And with the time he needed to fully recover, he might miss his chance to participate in the upcoming martial arts contest. Mason was considered one of the best practitioners who had reached the pinnacle of illuminating soul realm. Although Fred and some other practitioners were better than Mason, he still ranked fourth among them. They didn't expect that he could be defeated by someone who was in the third grade of the illuminating soul realm. But seeing that he was easily knocked down by Zen with just one blow, it created an instant fear among the rest of the practitioners. Their confidence gradually faded that no one dared to make the next move. They still couldn't understand how Zen did it considering that Mason's strength and power were beyond his. Fred was also stunned to see how Zen just easily knocked down Mason with just one blow. He knew Zen better than anyone who was chasing Zen right now. He had witnessed Zen fight with other practitioners at Cloud Hall. Zen's courage and challenging practitioners in the elite house had piqued Fred's interest. He was only a nature creature then, but he already had that confidence in himself. The elite house disciples had taken Zen's confidence as arrogance, and they were offended by his lack of respect towards those who had reached a higher level of cultivation. But later, Fred had learned from a trusted source that Zen didn't want to challenge the elite house disciples just because he felt like it. He wasn't acting on his free will. The so-called challenge was designed by the head of Cloud Hall. But whether it was arrogance or confidence, his competence wasn't something anyone could underestimate. It was indeed rare for a nature creature to challenge illuminating soul realm disciples, but Zen wasn't the first one to do so. However, the disciples that Zen had challenged were not ordinary illuminating soul realm practitioners. They were the disciples of Elite House, the cream of the crop. They were the chosen few from over 10,000 practitioners in Cloud Hall. No one expected that a nature creature would ever challenge the disciples from Elite House. However, after Zen won many challenges, he suddenly disappeared, and no one knew where he went. The chief rune master was devastated and angry at the turn of events that he quarreled with the head of the hall several times and insisted on finding Zen back. The Cloud Hall had sent someone to look for Zen. No rock was left unturned, but to no avail. Zen was out of radar. Everyone had lost hope in finding him. Of all places, Fred didn't expect to see Zen again in the Dragon Soar arena. The last time he had seen Zen, the latter was only a nature creature. But now, Zen had already reached the 3rd grade of the illuminating soul realm. Fred wasn't surprised at how strong Zen became, but he was sure that the latter had a lower cultivation base than Mason. But despite that, Zen was still able to inflict great damages to Mason. What happened to him in the past 3 months? How was he able to improve so much in a short time? It's amazing. He's really an interesting subject. It's either his competence has significantly improved or the practitioners at the pinnacle of the illuminating soul realm have become weak. Either, Zen has proved his incredible strength once more. Fred wondered. He could defeat Mason himself, but not with just one blow as Zen did. Back in the day when Fred was still in the elite house, he had already sensed something different in Zen. Fred had seen the great potential in Zen and believed that the latter was no ordinary disciple. He had foreseen that Zen would outperform him in the next 3 or 5 years. Fred was right on everything about Zen. However, it didn't take Zen 3 or 5 years to do it. Just after 3 months, Zen was able to improve himself. And now, he had become what Fred had thought of him. Fred had always believed in the spirit of martial arts. But just now, he started to doubt it. He felt frustrated to see Zen defeating Mason so easily, but there was nothing he could do but to bury his frustration in silence. When Mason finally hit the ground unconscious, Zen glanced at the rest of the practitioners in front of him. He could see the fear in their eyes and knew that no one would dare to attack him. But he continued to taunt them. Any other volunteers? I'm just warming up. Bevis of the mysterious Luna Hall was speechless. He froze and felt cold sweats coming out from his body. He had just missed the fate that Mason had suffered. If it weren't for Fred who blocked his attack aimed at Zen, he might be the one knocked down by Zen. He wouldn't be able to dodge that attack. What on earth was that? What kind of fist attack technique did he use on Mason and how was it so powerful? Bevis was left confused. Bevis was smart, but it was only natural that he couldn't completely comprehend the fight attack technique that Zen had used on Mason. The virtual tribulation realm masters like Saint Morphins even needed to destabilize the space before using the mystical pace, but he was still unable to comprehend the complete first level of space law. Neither the broken stone carving on the Cloud Road nor the one in the Cloud Hall was the complete space law. Hence, no practitioner was able to comprehend the complete first level of space law. Zen, on the other hand, had completely comprehended the first level of space law when he was in the upper world. In the upper world, the best cultivation resources were within Zen's reach. The cultivation resources in the upper world were much better than those in the central region. It was also the reason why many high-ranking practitioners from the central region wanted to go to Dragon Soar Arena. Afraid of what might happen to them, no practitioner dared to challenge Zen. They all took a step back in the hopes of avoiding the same fate as Mason. Catching Zen would be extremely beneficial for them, however, they would be putting their lives on the line by doing so. They knew that even if they could catch Zen, they wouldn't be able to enjoy the fruit of their labor if they were dead. Zen, it's a pleasant surprise to see you here. Of all places, I didn't expect we'd meet again in Dragon Soar Arena. I should tell you that our Cloud Hall leader has gone crazy looking for you. Fred said with a smile. Despite the trouble he had caused the head of Cloud Hall, Fred was sure that the latter would be so proud to know that one of her disciples had entered the Dragon Soar Arena. It would be the best thing that could happen to Cloud Hall. I know, Zen nodded. He immediately recognized Fred. They had met back when he was still in the elite house. Can you tell me where am I? How come the Dragon Soar Arena has been moved here? He asked. It had been a long time since Zen came into the Dragon Soar Arena. He noticed the many gorgeous buildings in the nearby area and thought that he might be in a big city right now. Fred could understand the confusion that Zen was in now, but there was not the time for him to answer his question. He said, it's a long story. For now, let's leave here right now. Our leader is in the Oracle City, too. Right, let's go, Zen said in agreement. When they were about to leave, Zen noticed that though the practitioners had stopped attacking him, they still didn't want to let him go. They were still blocking Zen's exit. It was starting to get annoying for Zen, but before he could lose his temper, he calmed himself down. Don't do anything foolish or I won't hesitate to kill you all. He threatened. The practitioners from Bloodwood Cliff, Black Mountain Sect, Ethereal Spirit Sect, and other Grade 4 sects were already scared of Zen after he easily defeated Mason. However, it didn't mean that they would just give up. Since they could not afford to catch him, they could at least not let him go at any cost. They could buy time until reinforcement could come. With the upcoming martial arts contest, the masters and disciples of different sects had gathered in Oracle City. While Zen was busy with Mason, someone had secretly burned the message rune and sent the message out. Once the reinforcements had arrived, it would be difficult for Zen to escape. These practitioners believed that Zen would be no match for either the Internal Elixir Realm Masters or the Virtual Tribulation Realm Masters. Everyone, listen up. Zen is a disciple in Cloud Hall. If you treasure your lives, you'd make way for him. Or suffer the consequence, Fred said coldly. Fred chose to stay neutral at the beginning because he didn't know that Zen was in the Dragon Soar Arena. But now that he and Zen had finally met, he wouldn't just stand by anymore. Anyone who dared to challenge Zen was challenging the Cloud Hall. Though fear in the practitioners had intensified, no one backed down. I guess you all chose to die. I'll make it quick, Zen shouted. He didn't want to waste any more time in this place. He had a rough time to come back to the central region. Now that he was about to step out of the Dragon Soar Arena, he wouldn't let anyone stand in his way. But these practitioners were getting into his nerves and they left him no choice but to fight. When he raised his leg, space began to vibrate. Then like a ghost, Zen floated away. Now, Zen was completely out of the Dragon Soar Arena. He was about to attack the practitioners who were blocking his way when he suddenly heard a voice. The voice said, "Don't be such a big mouth. Maybe the one to be killed is nobody, but you." The voice was sweet and gentle that it made Zen stop momentarily. Chapter 440, Letitia Ning. That was when he saw a young woman floating closer. He stared at her long legs which were bent as though she was reclining. He followed the fit-looking limbs up, gazing at her torso and the near-perfect curves the woman had. He looked higher, finding it impossible to look away from the flawless oval face. With a pert nose and full lips, she appeared a vision. Her high cheekbones served to draw attention to the seductive allure of her doe-like emerald eyes framed by her ideally arched brows. As she stared back at Zen, she narrowed her captivating eyes flirtatiously. Blood rushed to Zen's face as he gazed at the young lady, and he felt an irresistible impulse to do anything she asked wash over him. "Wow, her flirtation skill is frighteningly strong," exclaimed Zen, kidding his browline curiously. A slight quiver went through his soul before he felt his body return to normal, the fog in his brain cleared, and he could see clearly once more. "Huh," Lady Poison Blood uttered, as a bewildered look crossed her face. Her flirtation skill was exceptional, and it was especially potent against young men. That's odd. Based on his bone structure, he's 17, 18 the oldest. That's when boys are becoming men, and lacking experience. They are already easily swayed by the opposite sex, and unable to resist my flirtation skill. He was only affected for a few seconds and managed to break the enchantment. How's that possible? Deliberated Lady Poison Blood, baffled. Naturally, she didn't realize that Zen's soul was at the fighting soul level. It would be nearly impossible for anyone with such a powerful soul be bamboozled by her flirtation skill. "What I am doing is not your business," snapped Zen, grimacing. It's none of my business. The man you injured was my Bloodwood Cliff disciple. Do you really believe you can leave here, unscathed? Are you delusional? She spat out venomously, a wicked gleam in her eyes. Her voice became a purr as she continued, "If you like dreaming that much, why not come dream with me? After the wet dream we conjure up, there won't be anything but you, in a state of complete satiated relaxation. After her proposition, Lady Poison Blood's raunchy laughter filled the air. It was obvious to Zen that her flirtation skill was an unhanded method of sucking the vitality from men, and he was unmoved. He deduced that a wet dream with her would leave a corpse in place of a man. Lady Poison Blood's flirtation skill was extremely intoxicating. She could use the skill while laughing. As her sweet, alluring voice flooded the air, the other men present, including Fred, felt their blood boil. The effect was more pronounced on the low-level practitioners that were in earshot. Hearing her voice reverberating, the men became flushed and had a glazed, dreamy look in their eyes. As the delirium washed over the men, they stared, unable to think straight, with their mouths hanging open and zombie-like at the beautiful young woman. Staring at Lady Poison Blood, Zen grinned smugly and said, "You remind me of a poem I read. You are an attractive, striking lady, but I'm touched by your high praise. Tell you what, I'll make you feel delightful and important. But, no, I'm not interested in older women. I'm sorry." Zen enunciated each word slowly. His voice was cold and even. What Zen said stilled Lady Poison Blood's seductive manner, and her beautiful face twisted in rage. Within seconds, she went from a delicate, graceful-looking butterfly to a venomous scorpion as wave after wave of malicious aura poured from her. "You're nothing more than a boy at the illuminating soul realm. I was gracious and kind, as a way of giving you credit, and you dare to be rude," screeched Lady Poison Blood wickedly. "You, young man, you are courting death." As the leader of Bloodwood Cliff, Lady Poison Blood was one of the most formidable practitioners in the central region, and a junior practitioner of the illuminating soul realm had humiliated her. A spectator could only imagine how infuriated that made her. As her malicious aura got closer, Fred's face changed. How could Zen or he deal with someone at the virtual tribulation realm? Fred was a bit of a stickler in many ways. While the members of mysterious Luna Hall, Bloodwood Cliff, and Ethereal Spirit Sect quietly burned their message runes, Fred did not. Thankfully, unbeknownst to anyone, Zen had the foresight to contact Tia by activating the communication token. He had faith she would arrive soon. Even though Lady Poison Blood was intent on slaying Zen, his back was to the Dragon Soar Arena, and if Zen flew again, he could lure her into the genuine dragon world. If that happened, Lady Poison Blood would be imprisoned for 1,000 years because she wasn't a dragon lineage human and had no blood of the genuine dragon. Additionally, the leader of that Dragon Abyss Palace had given Zen an amulet. Of course, he would only use that when there was a crisis. As he was alert to a possible surprise attack, Zen's eyes were pinned on Lady Poison Blood. With his current strength, it would be a great test for Zen to fight someone at the internal elixir realm, so, he knew he needed to remain vigilant facing a master at the virtual tribulation realm. He planned on returning to the Dragon Soar Arena as soon as Lady Poison Blood made her move. Just then another old man, dressed in black and wearing a mask, appeared in the sky. His voice boomed as he shouted, "Lady Poison Blood, if your wish is to slaughter this boy, you will have to wait until after I ask him a question." "Seriously, Raven, you're interfering in my affairs again," shrieked Lady Poison Blood as her face darkened. The masked Raven grinned evilly and answered, "It's not my intention to interfere. But, what he knows about the Dragon Soar Arena matters. How could I stay away before hearing the secret? He's my prey though," argued Lady Poison Blood passionately. Raven didn't seem moved by her pleas. "He's the prey of whoever catches him. Is it written across his face that he is yours? He isn't a member of your Bloodwood Cliff." Raven turned, and staring at Zen threateningly said, "Boy, I advise you, to come with me and give me the secret of the Dragon Soar Arena. If you do, I promise to give you a quick, clean death, or if you don't, I will brutally torture you. I'll make you regret your birth." The old man before Zen was a master at the virtual tribulation realm. Fred's face paled. At this point, he remembered he needed to inform the hall leader quickly, but before he could reach for his message rune, Zen whispered, "I already asked for help." Zen hadn't said anything to Tia, but he did have a communication token, and once it was activated, a sound rang out, non-stop, that would lead Tia straight to Zen. "Okay, good," Fred replied, becoming a little calmer. His reaction was beyond reproach. After all, he had only reached the ultimate level of the illuminating soul realm, and was not even at the internal elixir realm, which meant he wasn't a match for these old weirdos at the virtual tribulation realm. In this case, he had to call on the hall leader to save them. However, what would they do if the leaders from Bloodwood Cliff and Black Mountain Sect attacked them now? Just as Fred was becoming flustered again, he heard a clear, crisp, ethereal yet cold voice. Regret? Do you think our Cloud Hall disciples would regret so easily? Crystal clear snowflakes fell haphazardly from the sky, and an invisible chill quietly spread. With steely, sharp eyes, Tia glared at Raven and Lady Poisonblood while she slowly floated down near the Dragon Soar arena. Her strength had grown immensely over the last 3 months. Her abilities were largely improved. 3 months ago, Tia was in the final stage of the internal elixir realm, now though, her strength was at the virtual tribulation realm. Since she was originally at the virtual tribulation realm, it wasn't a breakthrough. Letitia Ning, do you believe you can intimidate me because you are back up at the virtual tribulation realm? You know, you're still no match against me, right? Shouted Raven frostily. Oh yeah, Tia's full name is Letitia Ning, Zen reminded himself silently. Letitia sneered, and chuckling in a low tone, she stated, true, I haven't finished practicing the Sutra of Empyrean Goddess, and my cultivation hasn't fully recovered, yet. You're not afraid of me, but. Letitia dramatically paused before she continued, are you afraid of my master? At Letitia's words, the color drained from Lady Poisonblood's and Raven's faces. Lady Poisonblood, Raven and Letitia were both leaders of Grade 4 sects. However, the Black Mountain sect and Bloodwood Cliff were ordinary Grade 4 sects, while the Cloud Hall was an elite, top Grade 4 sect. There was a gap between the elite top sect and ordinary ones. It wasn't Letitia but her master that made the Cloud Hall the elite, top Grade 4 sect. However, her master had gone into seclusion and abdicated. She had little involvement in the Cloud Hall's day-to-day affairs and appointed Letitia as the leader in her absence. When Letitia finished practicing the Sutra of Empyrean Goddess, she would be able to promote the Cloud Hall to a higher level. Then, the Cloud Hall would be the second Grade 5 sect in the central region. Lady Poisonblood and Raven might not be afraid of Letitia, but they didn't dare offend her master. Even if your master is here, you can't take Zen. He's part of a major event that involves the Dragon Soar Arena operations. He has no choice but to share the secrets with us, said a new arrival as he led a group toward them. They were from the Ethereal Spirit sect, and it was clear they had come on foot. When Letitia saw them approaching, she furrowed her brow line.